The nice one.
Well, that's stormwater.
Oh, sorry.
Let's set it up this thing.
Hello, how are you?
So we put up a sign to the town of Secret Street, the love was from. His right. At this point, he was 0. I should have had.
So this, all those who sit at the end, how are you doing at the end?
I don't need another.
Don't touch it. It's on.
Okay.
Did everyone sign in? Is there anyone who did not sign in?
They're still signing in.
Yeah, I know, that's why I did it. They just got tired.
Everybody is on.
And that's the only
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Thank you.
You see what you're up to your life. She didn't want to come to say walking there.
It's like, okay, now we're at the turn we talk about this. You know, I celebrated quite being there.
This is expensive.
I agree.
One for you, your son. Order. Everyone can please rise. Pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Arndt.
Yeah.
Ms. Cook. Here. Ms. Eisenhart.
Here.
Ms. Falcone. Here. Mr. Haney. Absent. Ms. Hassler.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Comer. Here.
And we have no minutes to approve?
Correct.
And there was an executive session that was held at 6:15, and that was held for discussion of personnel and litigation matters.
We received, we don't have minutes this time. Council, we received a resignation of Daniel Haney from Borough Council. And I would like to make a motion that we table this request at this time. All in favor?
No, we need to ask for a
Oh,
second.
second, sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Call for a vote. Is there any discussion?
The only thing I'd like to say, just for the record, is I respect his resignation. I did personally have difficulty accepting it. I think he did a fabulous job leading this council. I wish he would reconsider.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the man resigned earlier this year, and he resigned now, so obviously in between, he didn't want to be on anyway. And I respect his wishes to not be on. If that's what the man wants, that's what he should get.
My part of the discussion would be, he's the best council member and president of council we've had in my 24 years in Topton. He will be greatly missed. He worked so hard, so very hard, everything with the union, with the sewer, with everything. And I would like to give him some time to reconsider a vacation where we're not bugging him with emails or phone calls or text messages. Just give him a vacation, and then we can see if he would want to reconsider before just totally losing him right now. So, all in favor?
Okay,
Wait,
we will need a roll call vote. Okay, is there,
I have one more discussion, I just wanted to say, so if you don't mind, where do you think as far as using a little time to possibly reconsider?
with the understanding that under section 902 of the Borough Code, if action is not taken on the resignation within 45 days, it's deemed accepted.
We could do it within 45 days.
Absolutely. Sure, I mean, you can table it to the agenda for the next meeting if council wishes to do so. It's council's decision.
I agree with that, to give him a little time and see what happens, and then I'll respect his decision, if he doesn't wanna come back.
So we're going to do a roll call vote. There's a question.
I just would like to say, maybe if you would put a word out to him that maybe not come out back as president, just as a council member, he might be more willing to. Maybe president was too much for him, so I just wanted to put that out.
I agree, I agree with that.
It's a very large commitment.
Yes.
Yes, and he has that option if he wishes to do so. Right now, we have on the floor a motion to table, and if we're ready to call for the vote will need to be a roll call.
Ready again? Mr. Art,
Opposed?
Ms. Cook,
In favor?
Ms. Eisenhardt,
In favor?
Ms. Falcone,
In favor.
Ms. Hassler,
Opposed.
Ms. Palmer.
Opposed.
3-3.
We have a tie vote, and in the event of a tie, the mayor votes.
Opposed.
Motion carries.
So now the motion to table does.
Motion carries. Oh, sorry,
Does not carry.
Okay.
So it does not carry. Do we have, then the next motion would be a motion to accept the resignation for the agenda. Carol, if you call for that motion.
Yeah, would anyone like to make that
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
And the motion is to accept his resignation, is that correct?
Resignation.
Do we need roll call for this also?
First, we'll ask for any discussion.
And you said we really can't not accept it.
Yeah, we
You
cannot
have-
accept it.
Well, I mean, tabling it would be not accepting it. I don't believe there's a motion to not accept a resolution. Motions are phrased in the positive.
And then you can vote yes or no.
Vote, you're welcome to vote yes or no as you see fit.
I can't, no.
Okay.
Ready for a vote?
Okay, again,
Discussion is over?
Okay, it doesn't appear there's any further discussion, so, this should be done by roll call vote.
Mr. Arndt,
Accept,
So it's a yes.
yes.
Ms. Cook? No. Ms. Eisenhardt?
No,
Ms. Falcone?
No.
Ms. Hassler?
Yes.
Ms. Plummer?
Yes.
3-3 again.
Okay, you have a tie
Mr.
vote,
Miller?
so the mayor will need to vote.
Yes.
Now this motion carries.
So the motion to accept the resignation of Daniel Haney from Borough Council has been accepted. I think it's fair to say with regret, considering that it's very rare that the mayor has to break a tie. So then Cheryl can take over from there.
Then we will need to request letters of interest for appointment to Borough Council. And I'd like some discussion on interview on February 10th at 7 PM at our regular February meeting, if people feel that's long enough to get a good selection of candidates or not.
yeah.
I think we can decide then, we see if we have any candidates.
Right, what will happen is that, and that comes down to the next motion, which will be the motion which will be made in a few moments to authorize to advertise, post on social media, post on the electronic message board outside, and on the website, letters of interest to serve on Borough Council. The individual needs to have resided in the borough for at least a year and be a registered voter in this borough for that amount of time. The interviews will be held as they have with just about everybody at this table, in the public meeting. They cannot be held in executive session, they'll be held in public meeting with discussion and vote taken afterwards again in the public meeting. So what will happen is that if anyone is interested, they should direct letters of interest to the borough manager.
And this would be for a seat on council.
This will be for a seat on council, and then once the new member is seated, there would be, similar to a reorganization, there would be a vote for the president and vice president of council. Well, actually, the president of council would not be for vice president of council, president of council.
Should there be newspaper advertising also, or do we normally not do that for this?
In the past, the borough has not done newspaper advertising, but it's up to council whether you want to include newspaper. There's a cost.
That's a large cost, yeah.
There's, I mean, you
No, we
incur,
need to do-
you incur costs when you have to advertise for ordinances and for zoning hearings. So you can, but you don't have to. You have a number of avenues, including the borough's website, you have the borough's social media presence, and you have an electronic message board, as well as posting on regular bulletin board and of course word of mouth, so.
I don't see any need for newspaper.
For a, like a candidate for to work in the office. Do you, for that position, do you advertise in the newspaper?
Yes. But that's different, that can go outside of the community, this is
Right.
the state.
And, right, this must stay in the community.
This has to stay,
That's-
that's a Topton for Borough Council.
So, would someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to authorize posting of the vacant position on Borough Council and requesting letters of interest for appointments with interviews on February 10th, 2025 at the council meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Communications.
The Girl Scouts of Eastern PA, again this year, sent us a letter requesting the use of the West Street parking lot for sale of Girl Scout cookies. They also gave all the dates that they could possibly be in the parking lot using that. They did supply a copy of their certificate of insurance. Usually, council makes a motion if they do accept.
Right, yes, if they accept the request to use the parking lot.
Would there be any discussion?
I make a motion
first,
to
make a
accept
motion.
it, yeah.
Yeah, since they provided the certificate of insurance, that's generally my own concern.
I make a motion to allow it.
I'd like to
Second.
discuss. Motion comes first.
And a second, and then if you have some discussion, you can.
I'd like to accept it, but with some modifications.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Yes.
Okay,
It's got a
okay, so there's discussion, in what way would you like to
I would like
modify?
to have it in writing that they will have one adult for every,
They have to per Girl Scouts, they must.
I want it in writing for the borough that they'll do that.
That's a Girl Scout law. They have to or they can't
That's
be
great,
yours.
I'd like it in writing for the borough. And I'd
It is,
also,
you can go on their website and get that.
Okay, I guess, I mean, what if we had this, if you asked the manager to call the person in charge and get it, and ask for assurance in writing that all Girl Scout policies on supervision will be followed.
Yeah, it is, it's a
and the other thing is the hours. I don't agree with. I would like them to be out of the parking area by 5:30 at the absolute latest. It's still dark right now. I know as the months go by, it'll be getting lighter, but on that section of the road, 35 miles an hour, which means an awful lot of people do 45 or 50, and they're not paying attention and they're looking at their phones, and I don't want any possible chance that a child would be injured. So I'd like them out of here earlier than 8 o'clock.
I had a question on this paper. It says that they're requesting space inside and outside of your location. What does that mean?
They know that it's outside here, it has to be in the parking
Okay,
lot.
it says inside or outside.
Yeah.
They might use a generic letter.
Yeah, that's what they do, it's generic,
Because it's
It's
under
a
store,
generic
but it's
So I
right
just
about
wanted to make
store.
sure.
Yeah, they do like the 8 AM to 8 PM because certain places they can actually be there until 8 PM. It's lit if they're at a mall or, you know,
That's lighting or
something like that. Out here, they're generally gone by like 4 or 5 o'clock at the latest. I don't know that they've ever been out there till 8 PM. They leave, cause you know, the girls get tired of it.
So it's just a window within that range.
Sometime in that window. I would find it very weird if they would be there till 8 PM.
I've never seen them have that range.
No.
I mean, and again, if the supervision policies are being followed, then that would be up to the adults.
So you don't think it would be wise to ask them to change it for our particular location with the traffic? Sometimes they're inside stores, I know, and the traffic isn't a concern.
I mean, what you could have is, you could ask that the manager inquire of them as to when they're really going to be out, and request that they not be there after dusk. You could make that request of them.
Okay,
But again, they're going to be supervised, they are going to be following scouting policies on supervision, so they're going to be adults there at all times. We're responsible for the safety of the minors.
okay, anybody else have any discussion?
One of these.
It is a lot of days. Is there any reason the parent of Girl Scout?
I am the uncle of Girl
The uncle of
Scout,
Girl
and
Scout.
brother of 2 younger sisters.
Yeah, okay. Does anyone know of conflicting need for that parking area space on any one of these many dates? Anybody ask for anything? Okay. You ready to vote?
Yeah, on the motion, with those questions being asked by the manager of the person who wrote the letter.
Okay.
Kathy is the person who made the motion, and Scott who seconded, you'll agree with that?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, the next item, for the benefit of the public, Topton Volunteer Fire Company #1 submitted their annual reports to the borough, and they are available for the public to view at any time during normal business hours. Thank you, that's all for communications.
Mayor's report?
Hopefully that was the most snow we're gonna get this winter.
Great.
If not, just keep your eye on the snow emergency routes. It's called Please Move Your Cars, so the guys plowing have it nice and easy. Thank you.
They can be towed, correct?
Yes, they can.
They can be towed, and we have a towing contract.
Okay, Lisa not made it here yet?
They will not be able to attend due to illness.
Oh, okay. No police report. For the hearing of visitors, all residents of Topton, who have a,
I like to speak in this section.
okay,
Okay.
A 4-minute time limit,
I don't have a time limit, I'm a member of council.
and
It's a public comment period, so why don't you start off the public comment?
the public is required to stand if you are able, and then give your name and address before you give your little speech you'd like to give. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, Scott Orr, 123 East High Street. So, you all know that the wastewater and the water treatment plant had to do SOPs. So, I took it upon myself to go up to the wastewater and up to the water plant to see if I could follow the SOPs or get some kind of idea how the systems work. You never know if it would be needed. So I visited the sewer plant first. Alex and Randy were both very helpful in showing me the basics, and I recommend to all council to do the same. This morning I went up to the water plant. Again, I recommend that everyone on council do the same. We went through the whole system. We went up and we started at Spring House 37, came all the way down, and Scott and Randy explained everything. And I could bog you down with many details, but I won't do that. You should just see for yourself. And I also learned this while I was up there today, during the strike, it was alleged by Arrow that a valve was closed that should have been open. Since I know how the water plant runs now, I will say, yes, that is very possible. There are reasons when different valves must be open and closed, but I don't believe there was any malicious intent to have the valve closed. For those that believe our borough employees only cut grass, plow snow, salt, pick up leaves, branches, and paint lines at crosswalks, you need to take the blinders off. Our borough workers also maintain the equipment, the spring houses, which there are 37 to maintain. They also go up there and reroute pipes that help keep the spring houses flowing properly, and I could go on and on about this. I will say this, if you for 1 second think that an outside contractor is going to give you the service that our crew gives us, you're a fool and dead wrong. Now I got some things here I'm gonna reverse. The last paragraph is something an old boss of mine told me. Remember, your employees are your greatest asset.
Yes, they are.
Thank you, Scott, Randy, Jesse, Scott, for all you do to keep this borough running the best it can. Sometimes a little thank you is all that is needed. guys. Now to the council. In closing, reaching out to council. I have asked this question on 3 separate occasions and was denied each time. And the question I asked was to meet face to face with Mr. Taylor and the employees to hash out an agreement. I stated before, and I firmly believe a deal cannot be reached by phone or email conversations. Elaine, you also mentioned in an email that borough business should not be conducted through emails, and I think an agreement is borough business. I am asking council to take our last offer off the table, and we sit down with blinders off and any animosity towards the workers left at the door, and work out an offer to present to Mr. Boland and Mr. Taylor that is fair for both sides. I would also be willing to be the lead person.
Any other visitors who wanted to speak? Yes. Name and address.
I don't have to stand if you can't. Oh, it's too late now. Mary Ellen Monahan from Main Street. 2 things. Number 1, what's going on with the sesquicentennial? It's coming really, really fast, and as far as I know, nothing has been done. So, and when I've talked with Julie and I've talked with Kathy, there's a lot of planning that has to go, and we're halfway through January and we have nothing. So are we just gonna ignore it
It's on the agenda.
today?
Yeah.
Okay. Glad to hear that. The other thing, are there any plans, for the community that are on the schedule at all, like, the end of school and beginning of school and yard sales or community yard sales or anything like that? Or are we not doing anything?
What we want to do is set up a committee to handle everything that's, everyone's gonna be invited. Come in and give your opinion and brainstorm as far as what it is we wanna accomplish.
Okay.
It's Topton's 150th anniversary, and it's also the national 250th anniversary, which we were notified, they're trying to put something together along Swamp Township. We got an email from them as well, if we wanted to go together,
For
so,
the 250?
for the 250th combined, right?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Sayward Bursher, I'm over on Irvine Drive. I was just looking over the agenda a couple days ago, and there were some things that I was kind of concerned about. One being the authorization of borough employees or board members driving equipment. I'm kind of concerned about insurance and stuff like that. And the other thing is hiring outside communities or outside companies for plowing, or snow emergency stuff. I'm kind of confused as to the whole claim of the borough has no money, but yet we're willing to hire people and throw money to a problem, when a problem can be solved quite easily and avoid any emergencies, possible strike, by coming up with a union agreement. Thank you, that's just my concern, something to think about.
I will answer as far as council members, and as borough employees to operate vehicles and equipment on an as-needed basis during emergencies such as snow emergencies. That would only be individuals who are qualified, and that would be covered under the borough's insurance. The other matter, again, that would be an as-needed basis, but that will be addressed by council under that item.
Solicitor.
Okay, First item, I'll give you an update on the litigation in the Court of Common Pleas of Berks County, Orphans Court Division on 546 Celia Avenue. The hearing before Judge Nevius has been scheduled for December 31st, 2025. We have received information that the owner of the property passed away last week. The petition was on the guardianship and asking for review of the performance of the guardian because the guardian was guardian of the estate, which includes the house and any property. And we had questions as to the performance of the guardian. We were asking for a court declaration, asking that certain maintenance and upkeep and remediation be done. Although the guardianship becomes moot with the death of the incapacitated person, we still are likely going to have a conference with the court where I'm again going to ask for court action to ensure that the property be taken care of and that the conditions be remediated at the property for the sake of the neighbors. So that's where we are with 546 Celia Avenue. We're going to continue progressing. And I have been in touch with the attorney for the Guardian Elder Care Solutions. They're based in Williamsport, Lycoming County. And they also share some of our priorities as to what's necessary to affect remediation. So we'll be working with them on that as well as more adversarial on certain matters. Meeting with the Teamsters, I spoke with Attorney Boland before leaving for this meeting. I don't have anything to report. The next item, the ordinance is fixing the tax rate and possible revision needed because of both a fire tax and an EMS tax. And the manager has requested certain revisions, so we could like to discuss that further.
The ordinance that initiated an ambulance or EMS millage to be added to the ordinance for Topton's real estate tax. Years ago, lumped it with the fire tax, and that's how it currently is written, and it needs to really be broken out, fire tax and EMS ambulance emergency services.
Okay. So what I'll need is a motion authorizing the adoption of an ordinance amending the current fire tax ordinance.
So this just has to do with breaking out the costs, there's no increase in tax.
No
It's
increase
just-
in taxes.
Just so the public knows.
Yes.
Right.
Increase. No, same tax, just broken out.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So that'll be prepared and advertised for the February meeting. And the next item is an agreement for renewal with the Topton Volunteer Fire Company. The agreement, while still in effect because it has not been terminated, does need to be renewed. It is a 3-year agreement from October of 2020, so it does need to be renewed. And is there any question about the terms of the agreement where they are providing fire service and would be the recipient of the fire tax proceeds?
I have a question. Just that there's a separate agreement for workers' comp, and I'd just like to see that one too.
Okay, Stacy, do you have the separate agreement for workers' comp?
Not at my fingertips.
Okay.
It was not included in our files with this agreement, so I would have to find it or get it from one of the other municipalities who also has. Or from the fire company itself.
All right, and that should be provided to you.
Does this get rewritten?
It wouldn't necessarily get rewritten unless it's going to change. It could be amended just to extend the term.
Okay. How long is this, another 3 years?
That's the decision of council. If council wants it extended another 3 years, that can be done. Well, the problem is binding future councils. 3 years is customary.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
You don't go much beyond that.
Long Swamp does it annually, and this slipped through the cracks already. So, however council decides,
3-year agreement with a notation in the borough calendar to.
there you go. So it'd be 3 years from the date it was supposed to be done.
Yeah, I mean, the agreement is still in effect. It becomes effective on the date stated above, continues in force of 3 years from the date of signing or until such time as may be terminated by either party. So it's still in effect, but it should be, because it has a term, it should be renewed.
So even if we do a 3-year, we can terminate it at any time.
You can terminate it by giving 90 days written notice.
It says it right there, so.
And it also does not obligate council to assess a fire tax. But again, it's taken into consideration. Topton Borough shall contribute some money from the fire tax proceeds. But it says this paragraph should not be construed to obligate the Borough Council to assess a fire tax. In the event that a piece of fire equipment or apparatus is purchased and 50% or more is comprised of funds donated by the borough, the title, it's noted on the title of the equipment, and there's a reversion to the borough with that.
Any other discussion?
How long can I renew it?
I think we should go for the 3 years. Might as well. It's what's been done. I'm not just saying fire taxes, but been that away for 3 years.
And as she said, can terminate.
Exactly, there's a termination clause in there, we're covered with that, so.
So it's
And they provide the services to us.
same terms as the 2020 agreement.
Workers' comp, yeah. Do you want to see that prior to voting? Should we table this? I don't know. Do you think it's necessary?
I think that, let's prepare it, we can, vote on it at the next meeting. In the meantime, Stacy should be able to find for you or retrieve for you the workers' comp agreement. So you vote on it, and then we'll prepare it and then vote on it. It'll be on the agenda for next month.
Do you want a motion to table this?
No, not a motion, a motion authorizing me to prepare a 3-year renewal to the agreement, and contact, the Topton Fire Company representative.
Would anyone like to make that motion? I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, and that's all I have unless anybody has any questions.
So the welding at the Washington Street pump station is going to be occurring this week. The office staff has performed the year-end closeout and the financials and begun the annual reporting, including starting to work with our financial auditors for our 2024 audit. The tax collector's audit for 2023 has been finalized, and the borough will be receiving copies in the near future for the public to review. The 2025 borough budget has been published on the website as well as for public review. Comcast, we were informed by the Berks County Cooperative Purchasing Council that Comcast is being funded a great deal and will be coming through all the towns in our area. So they will be soliciting, so if you see solicitation without a permit, please let the office know.
Do you give them a badge or they have paperwork from you?
They have paperwork from us and they also pay fees and they're limited with the fees that they pay with the amount of time that they're allowed to solicit debt. Based on how much they pay, it's a certain number of days, 1 day pass, it's based on our ordinance.
So check that.
Yes, they should have a paper that does say that they have a permit and it's just easy.
If that's not the case, then how will you know how many days it is?
It has dates. The permit has dates from their start to their end.
Do they do business in this town, Comcast? Do they, Minnesota Service Electric has a franchise fee, right? Some kind of fee that,
That's not exclusive.
It's a cable franchise fee.
okay, so does this company pay that, any kind of fee does to do
There
this?
is no,
For the service they're providing, the franchise fee is for cable television and related services. And it's a non-exclusive
this is
franchise
for
fee.
internet. This is broadband
So
internet
this is for,
to bring people up to speed. And there may be qualified individuals and families in Topton who are low to moderate income who will qualify for, free installation or things like that, based on the funding that Comcast has received from the government.
so we can't implement for any
No,
fees for.
you don't get a franchise fee for that.
Should we put that on the website so people will know if there's a knock at
We
the
can do
door?
Facebook posts and all of that.
Look at their paperwork, but don't be surprised if they can't.
Yep, we tend to do that for solicitors when we hear in the neighborhood that someone's going around. And next up is, I've been working with PFM Financial Advisors LLC along with Joan. Jamie has some information on how we may choose to proceed. We have a lot of projects that need to get done over, the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We need to proceed, especially with the pump station. Everybody has heard that over and over again. So I'll let Jamie take it over. Each council member has the bank loan analysis is what he's going to be referring to. Thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem, thank you. So just as background for some of you who may not know me who I am, I've actually been working with the borough probably for over a decade, back and forth over the last decade or so, helping out with debt issues. Ultimately, when we go back and look at the borough's outstanding debt, thinking back to the original sewer treatment plant financing, I came in and worked with one of the previous borough managers as well as finance team to work on a transaction to refinance an existing debt. And over the years, because of interest rate environment, I've been back a few times to save some additional money. So good news, bad news is your existing debt that we did last, which was 2021, has about $1 million balance left of principal. And the interest rate on that is 1.19%. That is really good. So we are not going to touch that. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is a couple of strategies that we've come up with to hopefully allow you some options to proceed with potentially some funding solutions for the various funds that are necessary to do some upgrades. And as Stacy mentioned, you have to have certain projects, as a reasonable expectation. You need to have projects to be able to borrow for funding that they're having in a tax exempt environment. That's a really important point here, where all of us collectively who are regular people, when you borrow money, when you go to the local bank and say, I need money for a mortgage or a car or a motorcycle, whatever it may be, you're borrowing at a taxable interest rate. You as a local government have a special exemption because you are a government. And what that allows you for is benefits to a lower interest rate because of that advantage. Why that matters is the people that ultimately lend you money get a credit for the interest that they receive. That's an important aspect, and that allows us to get better interest rates than us going back to the bank and say, hey, I need to borrow some money. That's what's really important here. When a municipality like you has capital needs and has to follow certain tests, and it has to have considerations to make sure that you're allowed to do it, number one. And two, you have to follow the state guidelines, and Jim and I can touch on those a little bit later. We don't completely bore everyone in the crowd, but I want to talk a little bit about how this may work. And it's a pretty interesting strategy. I think it can be helpful, and I just want to touch on kind of a couple of scenarios. So first, when Stacy initially called, she said, we've got some projects here that are related to some roads and for a sewer project, and also we may have a water project as well. So I came up with a couple of solutions, and it's really important to understand the key here is thinking about paying the debt back. And paying the debt back should be thought of by fund. Because if you think about your budget, I just heard you talking about your 25 budget, your budget is separated by a general fund, a water fund, a sewer fund, and you have different revenue sources that come in, right? We have taxes that come in to cover your general operations, police, things like that. We have water and sewer rates that are collected from the users of your water and sewer treatment plants. And those things are valuable to you, right? They come in to help facilitate the operations of the borough. And in addition, it covers debt issuance. And that's what we want to help facilitate. Where there's a unique circumstance here is, you might recall, you also receive funds from the federal, state government called liquid fuels funds. Those are funds tied to the gas tax ultimately. So when any time someone in this state fills up their car with gas, a portion of that tax money goes into a big pot of funds and is distributed to local governments for potential use of several things, including street projects. And you can also get used for salt and other things. The borough happens to get, and don't quote me exactly, but about $60,000 to $70,000 per year annually in liquid fuels funds. And traditionally what happens is local governments take that money and they find some smaller projects or a street here, maybe a street there, to offset the cost of some paving or other things. And that's perfectly normal. That happens all the time. In some cases, some build up those funds over a couple of years and say, hey, I have a bigger project I need to do. Why don't we take the funds we had set aside and in addition to funds we expect to get, we'll kind of put a big project together and cover the cost of that. Well, an interesting dynamic is under the liquid fuels rules, you're allowed to leverage that revenue coming in to cover street projects, as long as you meet a couple of criteria under the state guidelines, and that's an important point here. So one of the concepts here is we're going to hopefully consider utilizing some of the funds you receive annually from the state to use toward principal and interest of future debt tied to road projects. Why would we do that? Well, one, you have a significant amount of potential road projects to do over the next couple of years. And being able to do those in a short enough period of time, unfortunately, $50,000 or $60,000 a year just isn't going to cut it when it comes to being able to do the amount of work you get done. So I believe we may have some options here to use a portion of various revenue sources, use the existing debt budgeted profile, I'll talk about what that means in a second, to offset future borrowings. So when you think about it on your side of the table, there will be no budgetary impact to your general fund, your water and sewer funds, and all you'll be using is a budgeted amount of funds coming from the liquid fuels revenues that are coming in. So I believe we can do this without completely extending your debt to an extreme amount given the use of the project itself. It's a lot of words I just said, but I want to kind of give you that big picture idea here is we're using a strategy and a structure to take debt and revenues to leverage as much as you can do without any impact to your budget. You say, how is that possible? I'm going to show you. So everyone's got a very big document. Read it all tonight. Don't worry, driving specifically. I'm going to talk about some of the things that we have here. So let's point out in the middle section, number 2. Your existing debt, as I mentioned, has that balance of about $1 million of total principal. Right now, under your budget, you have set aside about $115,000 a year between now and 2029. That's when that portion of the debt tied to the general fund disappears. And I believe that went back to a project maybe for a park project, if I remember correctly, back in the day. Then in addition, a portion of that debt is being paid out of the sewer fund. So right now, you budgeted approximately $260,000 this year, and then next year, it would drop to about $136,000. So all told, between the general fund and the sewer fund, you budgeted about $376,000 of revenues coming in to cover that debt. It's important to point out here again, $115,000, $160,000 budgeted for your general fund, and the $260,000 in your sewer fund. Those two numbers are very important, okay? As I mentioned earlier, we have to make sure that your capital projects have a reasonable expectation to be spent within 3 years. So although you have a large capital plan, you're only allowed to borrow from anybody if you have reasonable expectations to spend all that money within 3 years. Okay, so that puts us in, what is this, 2025, 2028. So those projects, you kind of get it out, you get your, people hired to do all the work, and that starts, this year and ends in 2028, you're covered. It sounds like you've got some projects that are going to happen a little sooner than that, so you should be covered from that standpoint. But I want to point that out because that's an important aspect. What the federal government doesn't want you to do is say, I got a project a decade from now, can you borrow money today? It doesn't work that way. You've got to think about that within a 3-year period. I won't touch on the balance, it's a little more nuanced, but I'll point that any money that we borrow, what's important here is you are allowed to take those funds and put it into your local account, whether it's the Pliget or M&T or whoever your local bank is, and you're allowed to borrow and earn a rate of return on that money. So let's make an assumption here that we borrow at 4.5% interest rate. Currently, the interest rate environment is you probably can earn about that much in your current banking market. Now, they may go down if the Federal Reserve drops interest rates, but generally speaking, we're in a pretty positive position for reinvestment. So good news here is possibly you borrow money at 4.5%, you throw it into an account, you can borrow and earn as much as you're paying in interest while you're getting the projects done. That's a pretty valuable thing as well. But those earnings that you generate from that loan can be used towards your capital projects as well. Okay? So we ran 2 scenarios. So scenario 1 is the concept where we're going to borrow funds for road projects and for a sewer project. We'll talk about the water project in a second scenario, but I wanted to give you 2 different ways to think about it with different amounts of borrowings based on what Stacy described as far as the amount of money you might need. So if everyone can turn to page 5 and turn it sideways.
It's actually not.
Oh, yours is upside, right side up?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's right.
Mine's sideways. So if you can't read it, I'll try to describe what the numbers look like, but I want to point out, this is a summary of the structure. Keep in mind that the idea here is if you said, this is the greatest idea, we need money, go get it done for us. What it would look like is you'd have essentially one bank, we'll eventually find whoever that is, providing a loan, and it would be broken out into 3 different pieces. One piece could be for general fund, one piece could be for the sewer, and potentially one piece could be for the water, okay? So right now, this is talking about 2 different options. What's important is the blue section. If you need $1 million to do road projects, okay? Only road projects, nothing underneath it that have to do with pipes in the ground for the water side, which is important to point here. It's only for related to water projects under this, the code tied to liquid fuels. And it's an important aspect. We talked to the Department of Transportation, their representatives. It's an important point, but I wanted to touch on it is entirely for road projects only. Okay? The idea here is that we would borrow funds that would be amortized over a 13-year period. The first few years of that loan would be interest only. And we would do that because you have principal and interest payments currently under your general fund of about $115,000. When the debt matures, that old loan disappears, we would then start funding the principal tied to that $1 million, and we're able to amortize that amount and have a final maturity in 2037. So not generally too long. We have to make sure that the useful lives of the project are over 13 years. I believe that roads will be around for that long, if you're wrong. But we want to make sure they last that long. Why that's important here is because during those initial years, that interest only amount will be about $50,000 per year. Why does that number matter so much? Well, it matters because based on this plan, we would have you set aside every year for the next 13 years, $50,000 of the money that's coming in from liquid fuels to be dedicated for the amount associated with the road project loan. So when you look at your budget, you're taking the existing loan that you have, adding the $50,000, and you end up with $160,000 or so of an annual payment, minus $50,000, and naturally, the number turns out to be $116,000 of budgeted payments on your debt. So as far as you're concerned, and the public is concerned, we're able to utilize the combination of the liquid fuels money for 13 years and the existing taxes you had set aside for your general fund, and be able to do approximately $1 million worth of road projects over the next 3 years. So that's point number one, but I think it's an important one here because it is all about how you budget going forward. I'm not talking about your operational costs as well. Keep in mind you have real life, you have to handle, healthcare, and you have to deal with, police and all those other things. Those are different decision points. From a debt service side, meaning the principal and interest you pay back on the general fund, and assuming, as long as the board commits to this, establishing that $50,000 a year, which leaves you between $15,000 and $20,000 set aside for anything else tied to liquid fuels, which I believe is about the amount you need for salt, give or take. So it should leave you with enough money to do what you need to do, and you'll have enough funds to do approximately $1 million worth of road projects. So that's the concept.
For what period of time?
For what, I'm sorry?
You said something about 13 years.
Yes. Yeah, so the debt it would take 13 years to pay it all back. So you borrow $1 million, you pay it back, each year at the dedicated amount, and in total, it would mature, the final payment would be in 2037. So from your perspective on it as a board member, you would make sure that you continue to budget $116,000 or so a year in the tax amount that you've set aside. So you've been doing that now. And you continue, going forward, dedicate $50,000 per year of the liquid fuels money to go toward the road project itself. So those two things put together equates to a net number of what you're paying currently today on just the road projects. So that's a little more complicated concept, I should point out, but I think it's the best thing because it's the, kind of the bigger numbers of what we're talking about. The second piece of this is, well, you have a sewer project, and the good news here is your debt tied to the sewer is going to mature in about 1.5 years, essentially. Right? We talked about earlier that your budgeted payment is $260,000 per year under your current debt. So my suggestion here is, based on my understanding, is the project balance, because you have set aside funds from the ARPA that are going to go toward this project, and I believe the difference between that is about $300,000. So we would borrow approximately $300,000. We'd structure the payment where essentially in about 1.5 years, we pay back the principal. So when the other debt drops off from the bank loan, you have the first bank loan, you have a budgeted payment, the payment that you've already established for the next 1.5 years, and you can cover the cost of your project using a debt issuance for an extra year or so. That's a pretty short period of time to pay back a sewer project, but it works really well, so there won't be too much interest to pay because of the amortization being relatively short. Okay, so those are two different scenarios for two different funds. I did not touch on one other additional structuring technique here, is in addition, should you want to do this, because you just adopted your budget, did not set aside funds at this point in time for some of these things, what we would do is we would borrow additional funds called capitalized interest. All that really means is we'd be budgeting for the interest expense that you would incur in 2025 for any of the projects that we're talking about. So there would be literally $0 impact because you have funds set aside to cover the interest while you're doing all this. So even though we talked about the liquid fuels money, you don't necessarily have to dedicate this year's liquid fuels into this project because we have this capitalized interest established. So it make the borrowing a little bit higher, but because we're sitting in kind of mid-January at this point in time, we're already on your budget, this is a strategy for us to kind of borrow those funds and not have the impact. So there's a couple of things going on here when it comes to the concepts. Okay. I'm going to stop for a second. You asked a great question about the term The next scenario will look very similar in concept, except the difference here is we have one additional type of project. But I wanted to kind of give everyone a chance to kind of think about and ask the question they may have on at least this first strategy.
I'd like you to go back to a bank that will lend money at 4% and also pay 4% on balance on the, that's not how banks work.
It's how you're allowed to do it. So what we would end up doing here is my job, I work for you, by the way, I should point that out. I'm a fiduciary that is hired by the borough and I've been doing that for years. So I sit on your side of the table, okay, that's the good news. Traditionally, you can take advantage of these things, okay? So we would go out and solicit local and regional banks. It could be someone around the street, it could be a bank that's in Rhode Island, it could be someone that's, in Allentown. We go to all local and regional banks that are interested in lending to municipalities like you that have the ability to raise taxes if necessary, raise sewer rates and water rates, and come up with solutions. So they want to lend money because their job is to do exactly what you said. They need to lend money because they've got money. On the other side of it, you have accounts with local and regional banks. Do you split it? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay.
Not this time.
I would point out it's a financial lending institution that can provide investments to local municipalities. They're paying about 4.5% to 5% right now. So the local banks, some that you deal with probably have similar interest rates if you have. So I bring this up is that issue because you are borrowing at tax exempt and you're investing in taxable rates. So that's why the difference is where it is. It won't last like that forever. When I was here in 2021, you guys were earning 0.02 basis point, percent. Now you're earning 4%. It's a different world we live in today than we did in 2021. But it's out there for right now.
So it would be in a bank or lending institution that invests in taxable earnings. It gets us to 4%.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to put the money that you're getting from the bank with the bank that's lending to you.
Right.
So they may want it, I should point out, but you're not required to generally. So you're allowed to kind of find a different institution that will invest the money, and you'll find a bank that gives us the best proposal for the first one.
Right, some do require a deposit.
Some do, yeah, some do, not everyone, but some do.
It'll be part of their proposal.
Yes, we will know it when we get the proposals back if they want your reinvestment. And that's part of our evaluation. We decide, if they give the best rate, but they're only giving you, 1%, and the bank down the street gives you 4% and has a little bit higher rate on the higher rate on your investment, but a lower rate on your, it's all math problem here, so we have to agree on that.
Heard you use the word taxable.
Yes.
Is that taxable the borough pays?
No, yeah, you don't pay taxes because you're a local government. This is on the bank's side. They pay taxes because they're a private entity. It's about status under the tax code. And you are advantaged because you're a local government. So it's the school. The school can do the same exact thing.
It's a common way to do finance infrastructure projects, very common.
And we do this all of us. I've been in these meetings 24/7.
So PennVest,
It's a different concept than PennVest.
PennVest has its own set of criteria.
Right.
For instance, well, PennVest will finance roads.
That's exactly right.
So right now, I've got a big water project,
Water project.
and all the paving for that project, $15 million over the water project, all the paving is outside of the PennVest. So it's not an option at all for anything that requires paving.
And what's important about PennVest, and I'm doing the PennVest one at Amity Township right now, on a very large sewer project. And that particular project and where the PennVest works is, they amortize debt over 20 years. There's no flexibility in that structuring.
But
So-
it depends on your circumstances, if you
Exactly.
possibly get grants too, and all to offset.
That's, of course, usually what happens these days is they give you the benefit of the low interest rates.
Yeah.
Then they do grants, generally speaking, but they do have a lot of money.
Yeah.
My job is to figure out what method makes most sense for you.
Okay,
And this RAP structure, we're going to call it RAP structure,
okay,
this is the way to go.
Okay.
Don't worry about that in this case,
okay.
but it's a good question, and it is a funding source.
We would be on the very low end of where you would consider that.
Yes.
We're usually looking at $1 million project.
This is a solution to a small problem in the grand scheme of things using, all the pieces that we have in this place to kind of cover. Okay. I'm gonna turn to that scenario two. Again, it should be somewhat similar in concept, but I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like. It's not exactly all the same numbers, and that's because the allocation of the fees and costs and things move a little bit, but it's becoming very similar. So this is page 7. So again, similar colors, because we love colors in our office. So again, same concept here is we have that kind of $1 million-ish available to you or for the road projects. Same concept of setting aside the $50,000, that capitalized interest. So very similar look on this blue versus scenario 1. Scenario 2 or option 2, the yellow, which is the Series B. This is the sewer project. Again, that same concept where you have about 1.5 years of payback, same payments. But the third option is the water fund. That's the green. So we don't have any, hate to say, any fancy options here on the green because you don't pay any debt right now under your water fund. So in this case, all we'd really be doing is we'd be tacking on the suggestion of about $700,000 for projects, for the water projects. So we just do a level structure over 13 years at the rate that we receive from the bank, amortize it over a period of time, and it will cost you about $50,000 per year in annual payments. So in that particular case, you as a board would have to consider, the ability to pay that back and what is necessary to cover that annual payment. That could be, some water adjustment. I especially did not look at your financials related to that, but that would be where that would come from. In all of those cases here, that capitalized interest, that borrowed interest in 2025 would be included. So you have no budgetary impact on anything in 2025 on any fund. That's the concept behind those. So the fancy ideas on the blue and the yellow are done with that strategy, really tacking on the green because you need money for the water fund. It's just saying do a 13-year metal structure at $700,000, cost you that $80,000 per year based on my assumed interest rates. But the point of all this is it would make most sense if you have capital projects, bundle it all together, do it at one time. It'd be one lender, one set of closing costs, and broken out by all these funds. And then again, as Borough Council members working with your team to facilitate the payback, we would do that through this process. And that's the idea here. It's a unique strategy to a circumstance that I think can be done and affordable. So you're getting the benefit of a little bit of everything. Federal money from liquid fuel, state money from liquid fuels, federal money from the ARPA funds, and then local funds tied to local residents, water and sewer rates, and then private funds from whatever municipal tax. So you've got everyone touching this potentially to make this work from a financial aspect. So that's the concept. Happy to answer any additional questions you may have, but I can talk about the timing and how this would all work after you ask me any other questions. So now we're going to get into a little bit of how it works from a legal standpoint and from a timing standpoint. So I'm going to skip over to page 9. So this is a timeline that we put together. This is very traditional on how local governments can go through this process. It is not as simple as I said, calling the bank down the street saying it's some money and 2 days later you have money in your pocket. It doesn't work that way. The way the state works is if a local government wants to issue debt, it has to follow all the rules and conditions under state guidelines called the Local Government Unit Debt Act. It's not Borough Code, it supersedes Borough Code. So certain conditions that are tied to the timing, and you have to authorize advertisements, adopt ordinances, and get anything, effectively from this transaction, all can happen within the next month. I can be back to you with proposals and this concept, in hand, 1. And 2, once we get there, you can have the money in hand about 30 days after that. So within about 60 days or so, from start to finish, we can have this all work for you. and that can give you some time to get yourself ready to go for the project itself. So that's high level. Big picture here is, should you like this concept, and really the bigger question for you is really, would you want to go with scenario 1 or scenario 2? It's really a matter of, do you want the road project, do you want the water projects included in this, or don't you? That's really the point I would have. All of the timing doesn't change depending on which scenario you do. It's just a matter of how much money you're going to ask the banks for in this case. The way it would work is if you say this sounds like a good idea, let's go out and solicit local and regional banks. So from that perspective, my firm at PFN and I would go out, we would prepare a RFP, which is essentially tell all the terms and conditions of the loans that we were asking the banks to consider. We would tell each bank that this would be broken out between 3 different pieces, a Series A, a B, and a C. Each one is a general obligation of the borough, and that's important here. It is backed by the taxing power of the borough, but understand, as we just talked about, each one of them would be tied to the different fund. So in real life, you're covering this with the various revenues coming from the different utilities and general fund, but the backing is it's a general obligation issue of the local government, which you have the taxing power to raise if you need. Okay, and that's why the banks are interested in this. They would review the financial statements, they'd ask a bunch of questions of me, we would have the banks come back and provide proposals to me. I would hopefully prepare a nice summary that talks about the proposals we received, what fixed rate they would give us, for how long, is there any costs on their side, the banking side, is there any conditions like deposit relationships or other things that you usually ask for, and assuming those things all come in, we'd evaluate that and take the best proposal. I put it into the analysis that I did on whatever scenario you wanted, and we look at what it looks like. I believe I'm pretty close to what I think the market would look like, so I don't think it would be dramatically different than this, but I've been wrong before. So we would come back with actual proposals. At that time, assuming everyone's comfortable with this, Jones' firm would actually do some advertising. It is a requirement of the state to advertise within the ready within 3 days before your meeting. Unlike normal borough ordinances, which take a month, you're allowed to do a 3-day before. That advertisement would say, the borough is considering adopting enacting an ordinance that is to borrow money for X amount of dollars. We would meet the bank, we would have all the requirements under the state guidelines. We went through that today, and we'd come back at that meeting for consideration of the borrowing at that time. Borough Council, of course, is allowed to say no. If you don't, hopefully this is a good idea, and we come back with proposals that make sense. But if you say no, we can reject the proposals, and you'd add some costs for the advertising, but that's just the way the project would work. Should the borough decide that they're saying that the ordinance is adopted, in that case, we would then do a second advertisement in the Eagle saying the advertisement occurred, and then there'd be a filing with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that essentially reviews the process. And as long as they believe you follow the process, which we make sure of, they don't reject and say, we don't like that project, we're not going to say yes to it. It's simply, you follow the rules of the state guidelines, and within 30 days, you can sell it. So, a lot going on here, but the process is the process. I'm your expert, along with your solicitor. I don't know, we had a separate bond council we might have had last time, but it's a different conversation.
Yeah, I think we did the last time with separate bond council, that's right.
That's it. So there could be some other people in this workshop that's being shown up at some point in time. But understand the concepts of the concepts here. I think this works pretty well again. I'm an independent advisor, I work for you. Clearly I'm taking the guidance of your staff that says we need the money, and this is the solution we came up with. If you tell me, I don't need a $700,000 water project, I need $500,000, I'll get you $500,000, or don't give me any money for water. I'll do whatever you want. The other alternative is, I can ask for both. I can say, no water and water, with water, and get proposals back for both, and you can take some time to figure it out once we come back with proposals. That's an alternative as well. Doesn't cost you any more to ask for 2 different options. And that's a lot, I know.
We've just raised water and sewer rates a lot. I believe somebody told me, I can double check this, we're about the highest in Berks County. And what you're talking about is we can get the funds and that's why they'll lend to us because we can just raise the rates.
If you want to. But I think you don't need to raise those sewer rates, I don't believe, because of the debt issuance. I can look and see if the water rates are comfortable. Frankly, I work with Callowhill, Muhlenberg, Max Tony. There's some high rates out there too. I don't know the right answer, but I'm happy to give you the example if you want to know the other rates, so I can go over reference. But this is a question of can you get the projects done or not? Clearly, we want to make sure that there's affordability for both the lending side and of course the end user, which is the people in this room.
It's the fact that you set the rates to bring in that revenue is why they like your ability. Unlike me, I get a wage. You can set those to make sure you get enough money. That's why the banks like municipal, that plus the tax benefits.
I mean,
Those two things.
because that's in lieu of collateral.
Yeah.
Is the taxing power.
Yes. Yeah, they're not asking for like the sewer treatment plant as a security or a mortgage to the building, can't do any of that. It's clearly they want the backing of the general obligation, if we let this utility revenues offset it.
So we have done those cost estimates for grants and other things for projects. You've got, we just haven't been able to do the projects for lack of funds.
So I'll clarify the information that I gave to Jamie. $1 million for streets is not gonna go far with our needs. But Charlie Paris, our representative from PennDOT, we can't tar and chip, just like you couldn't tar and chip with any other funding either. But we can use our co-op equipment. The group of gentlemen in that co-op as workers, the millings we can use in the alleys, and this $1 million will really get us asphalt. Okay, so that's streets. We can't use that million for anything else but streets if we're paying for part of it with our liquid fuels funding. Our liquid fuels account right now, the balance is over $360,000. Okay, so then we go to the sewer, Washington Street Pump Station. That's what that is. That's the balance that we have a grant, sure, but that's not gonna pay for the entire thing. So that's it. And sewer is already paying off their loan, and this will just extend it a very short period of time. We were hoping that it'll pay off quick, but we need this pump station. So I think we need to bite the bullet and extend the debt a little while longer, and it's not 13 years.
On the sewer side.
Yeah, on that sewer side. Then we go to the water, we're looking at Keller, we're looking at East Barkley, and we're looking at part of Franklin. Those are our 3 priority needs. We need to get them done before we can even pave anything on those streets. We have to get those water pipes replaced. So that's what we're looking at. We've gone to the mat with grants for water. We have asked for Keller. We've been disappointed. We didn't get it. We've asked for East Barkley. Once we got half, and now we have to wait until the fall to find out if we even have the other $200,000 for Barkley.
Keller Street water pipes aren't bad, correct? They need to be done.
Correct.
They definitely.
For multiple reasons.
Yes.
Is the rest of them Keller, not the part we did already? Correct. We're gonna finish Keller, we're gonna finish the area of Barkley and the area of Franklin that we need to.
So did I hear you say, right, though, that all of these projects have to be built in the next 3 years?
You have to reasonably expect to spend money within 3 years.
So, you will, for a lot of property, can the borough do all of these projects within 3 years?
Some are contracted out.
And the water and sewer would be contracted, the streets would be over 3 years. That's quite a bit of money for asphalt, but it's not a whole lot of, if you spread that over the crew, for 3 years, I think that's really doable from a standpoint. I don't see a problem with the projects we've identified getting this going. Once you have the funding, funding's been part of our challenge.
Okay, I think it's important to point out, and I did this with MT about and still working on some mining work. It is usually cheaper to do larger chunks at one time when you're bidding it out because you get more efficiencies with it. So that kind of like here, a little there. Yeah, you can afford it, but doing it all in bigger pieces, you get better bang for your buck.
But I was just asking for a note that we're small.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of resources and stuff.
Yeah, I completely understand, and I would add, we're collecting the house grant already for a portion of this project. If you have to get, another grant after we get this completed, we can pay down principal using the grant. That's an important aspect, so usually the loans itself have provisions in the lag prepay, we have to get grants. I think this is just a question of having enough funds to get you going. And if you do have to find outside funds in addition to this before it can really get moving, I hope that, that just means it's less you have to pay back the principal, but we should get the money you need to do the projects. A lot of times the grants you get are matching grants, so you have to have the funding up front and then you have to pay back.
Not mentioned there.
I did financing for line missing at the end of the year. They received a pretty sizable grant for the public works facility. As part of that transaction, the acting program, required that long-term debt as part of it. And so we did that. And then the project's almost done, and then we expect, early this year to get that money, and we'll take it and just need to pay back. So it's no different than the G-Roll and the same kind of stuff. It's just a matter of process. I'm sorry, there's a lot here, and my judge hopefully understands just generally what we're trying to accomplish. I would also add, you ask interest rates. It's important to point out that that 1.19% I talked about earlier, which is the loan that I had outstanding. Right now, we're probably in the market somewhere in the 4.5% range for something like this. That's higher than 1.19. Doesn't take it rocket science to figure that out. But generally speaking, 4.5% in historical, world of local governments is a pretty good rate. We just happen to be at all-time lows when I was last year in 2021. Now, that's not we got it, but we're going to be in this range for a while, I believe. And if the Federal Reserve does reduce interest rates, later this year, could we see some drop in rates? Yes. Most of the market kind of building that into what they're offering right now. The real change will probably happen is if the Fed does drop rates, your reinvestment rate can go down a little bit. Not sure. So I let the project determine you moving forward, not waiting on the market potentially shifting. I've seen it go the opposite direction, and the cost of the project's just become even more because of inflation, and you're working around grant money or wherever it is, and it's caused a lot of problems for local governments. So not that it push you into it, I just think it's the right thing to really need that project.
So we're borrowing at a fixed rate or function?
I hope fixed rate for the full term. It's possible, depending on which bank we get a proposal back, that you have a fixed rate for 5, 7, 10 years with a variable rate component thereafter. It just depends on which bank we get back. Again, I'll get proposals back, I'll evaluate and see what makes more sense. Sometimes it makes more sense to be in that 7-year fixed rate with a cap rate or something versus just having a fixed rate for the full term. I'll evaluate all three and tell you what makes sense. I would say 13 years is a good maturity. The banking market, generally speaking, is 15 years or less. Kind of fits into the windows of the banks that are interested in this. If you told me 30 years, I'd say, zero banks is giving money. We go to a different category. So 30 years is good.
Lot to think about.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of number crunching.
It is a lot of numbers.
Well, I mean, we have to do number crunching because we can't necessarily count on the money we're getting for liquid fuels. The 1 year we got much less than we normally do. We can't commit to monies that we don't know what that's gonna be for our taxpayers. So we would really need to, in my opinion, look at 13 years out, how much is our inflationary rate gonna grow? We've got contracts that haven't been accepted yet with some of our workers. We gotta look at all those numbers moving forward. I need to know exactly how much money we're talking exactly, because our taxpayers are gonna be footing the bill for any shortage in the form of a tax increase. And we're gonna look at when we are expecting to need to make a tax increase and how much that's gonna be. So there's a lot of number crunching that I would need before I could commit to going down this path.
We did raise our taxpayers' real estate taxes by a full mill, just 1 year ago. So we've raised and raised and raised.
Yeah, no,
So there's a lot of number crunching, I think, that I'm gonna need to see some numbers before I can say, okay, we can commit to a 13-year with, $50,000.
Stacy did look in, because that was one of the conversations we had about, how much liquid money you had, and from a perspective looking back at some historical trends. You received higher amounts in previous years because of just the cost of gas at certain points in time. So I believe when we talked, and that's why it sort of kind of worked out pretty well, that the $50,000 number was well below, the estimate. And I think you mentioned earlier, your account currently has $350,000-ish of balance. So conceivably, if, let's just say there's a bad year, so let's say that 50 is 42, you have a $300-ish thousand balance set aside from your fuels account that can offset that balance. So you do have some buffer.
Oh, yes, we definitely have some monies that we can count on, but I need to kind of look at the numbers, kind of spread out. So
It's the easier way to invest that with old fuels out than
it
to
absolutely,
this, and
yes,
to bundle it seems like the smartest idea.
yes, I agree with that. Just need to see how much money that's gonna really look, how it's gonna look for our taxpayers before I could, how much money we're gonna have.
Well, this has to move forward.
Yeah, two things here. You're not committing to borrowing money tonight, okay? So, again, I'm just, you're not standing in this room. So, the idea could be, I could go out and solicit the local regional banks, have proposals come back within the next month. It gives you that period of the next month to take a look at those aspects, whether you come stop in the office or whatever you need to do, get some comfort. We can get proposals back. The issue we have is when we get proposals back, usually banks will hold the rate for a reasonable period of time. Usually it's about 45 days, okay? It takes 30 days to settle, so we don't have a ton of time once we get proposals back. Could we get proposals back and come in and numbers look pretty similar to this and people look at this and this makes some sense, or well, then let's go advertise, we do a special meeting or something like that. That's an alternative. That's an option.
Jamie, we also have an advertised fourth Monday meeting to work with.
Great, yeah, so we could, I was thinking 1 month, so
Right.
I could come back to the 1 month meeting and then that next meeting could be ordinance if you wanted to. So you can review all those things, so. This is not a pushy guy kind of thing, I just wanted to.
No, I
So
know
let's
that,
just
I'm
say-
just saying that
Yeah,
it's,
I
this all
understand. You
sounds
guys
very
are
good,
looking
but I
at
just
the
need to
idea.
see, make sure we've got the money moving forward through the years to cover this.
Yeah.
Responsible. I'm expecting we're gonna have, periodic increases in taxes, so just a matter of kind of looking at it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Keep me posted on what you want to do. Oh, I'm sorry, do you want me to solicit proposals? Yeah.
You should have a motion. A motion for PFM to solicit proposals, and is there a second?
Second motion, that's at no cost to us.
That's not an in-cost, it's just soliciting proposals to be shared with council at the next meeting.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
With including roads, by the way.
Yeah.
Julie wants them.
Roads, yeah, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, I know there's a lot, I won't go through as much next time, but I just want to understand this. So, thank you.
Yeah, you encapsulated local government unit.
Hey,
It's hard, that's hard.
I've been doing it for a long time, unfortunately.
Good point.
See you guys next time.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll proceed with my report quickly. The bidding thresholds were adjusted for 2025 and the base is now 12,900, so anything above that needs, obviously, will be suspended the next 23,800 for bids. So anything below that does not.
And that's right around the prevailing wage.
And just so council knows as well, the IRS reimbursement rate for mileage did increase to 70 cents a mile. Next item is the schedule of fees, which does need slight adjustment. Sidewalks, etc., excavations of streets and sidewalks. The cost for that to the borough went up, so obviously the cost to then the permit puller, the person who is pulling the permit, requesting the permit and inspections that go along with the work.
Just some background, we had, I think last year, the first
Yes.
we had gone from a previous structure where you were not recovering your funds at all to a new rate. We kept track this year, doing them individually, looking at what it cost, and so the rates you're seeing is a reflection of the actual cost that we're needing to bill. One of the challenges we're having, unfortunately, is a very high number of failures. The inspections of road opening and sidewalks, we're seeing a lot of re-inspection across the board, but in Topton, I'd say it's about 50%.
And it has the rate, 75 now? Is that what we're looking at? So for under residential and non-residential, let me get a page. It was, for sidewalk, curb, sidewalk, and driveway, it went from 350 to 450. Curb and or driveway only, 250 to 350. Sidewalk, handicap ramp, went from 250 to 350. Excavations of streets and sidewalks, the first 10 linear feet or 30 square feet went from 75 to 150. Should I go on? No, I was just, it's a really big jump, that's why I'm just curious.
Well, the 75 wasn't covering me. The 75 wasn't covering
I mean, like,
an
you
hour.
know, 250 to 350.
Yep.
It just seems, that's. All right, it is what it is, right?
And we're also including in our fee, schedule of fees, starting when council approves this motion, the sanitary sewer connection. Every time a property is sold, our staff are going out without any fee being collected, inspecting it, re-inspecting it if it needs to be improved and then re-inspected by our staff. It's a small fee, it's $25, re-inspection, $25.
It's reasonable, I think, compared to other municipalities, actually.
So that is the resolution that would, if council so chooses, a motion to adopt this resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt it.
One second,
I'll second.
Any discussion? You ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And the next item on the agenda is a continuation of Uniform Construction Code Board of Appeals. We're a member, and for us to continue to be a member annually, we have to sign their agreement. Council has been supplied with a copy of the agreement, we just need authorization to execute, so sign.
I'll second.
$300 fee, is that fee?
Correct, once a year at
$300.
$300. But we don't have to do that work ourselves and have a UCC appeals board.
Extremely important to be a part of that, because to get qualified for willing to serve is very difficult, except in a very large population municipality. And it also takes the local bad feeling out of some of those decisions. I've had the downside of it, where there is a local appeals board with individuals not qualified and strong emotion, and it never ends well, so it's better to have it with the county.
Any other discussion?
I'm just curious.
It's rare that a case ever goes up to
Okay,
it.
that's what I was curious.
It's like the old boat appeals board, it's a variance for materials and manner of construction. It's a very small, discrete set of issues.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. So recently, and in the recent past year, we've received requests to deposit clean fill and not so clean fill in our watershed property. Since that's been refuted by those in the audience at times, and staff have been accused of things, I would like a motion officially by council whether or not to allow such clean fill to be deposited at the watershed. An example of this is if UGI has a contractor who's doing a street occupancy permit, complying with it, digging it up, inserting a new line for gas, they need to get rid of the fill. Most prominent to the community, most well-known was Haas Street. So that was a lot of construction that needed to be done all at one time. And yes, we did allow the clean fill to be deposited at the watershed property because it was clean fill.
And it was definitely clean fill. I mean, I trust our guys to do it. If it would be our guys doing it, yeah, you know.
What kind of certification is there that it was tested as clean fill? Because this is a watershed, it's a watershed property. There's also an isolation distance around any source water well. So we need to assurance that it's not going to be in the source protection area that number of feet, I think for a public water system, I believe it's 100 feet, possibly more. Do we know that that fill will not be put in that area? In the wellhead, it's called the wellhead protection area.
So the challenge is that all those apply is what is it? If it's clean dirt, it doesn't matter. But that would be the question is, what's your process for saying that it's clean or not?
We have no other place to put it, you're saying? No, the contractors do, they can haul it away, it'll take longer and they'll have to go farther.
The cost to.
To them, and UGI would receive that bill from, let's say, H&K.
There's also a problem with the heavy rain, which we get sometimes, and runoff, wherever it's dumped, and we have springs. And yeah, with the watershed, that really makes me nervous.
Were there designated dump areas or anything? Because
yeah, I mean, there is one area up there that they've been dumping as long as I work here.
And keep in mind, we do, when we do projects, that's where we dump it.
yeah, I figured that's where you guys put it.
And how far is it away from the wellhead protection area, do you know?
I think you're far enough away from it's at least,
Can you estimate how many feet?
probably 200.
Certainly the borough's work is because that's controlled by the folks that
Right,
here.
we're talking contract.
And as long as somebody's verifying it for something bad to go there. And I take it you're putting it somewhere where where you'd like to have fill. I mean, if that's the case, where you have a desire to have fill there, and it's away from your well and springs, especially the springs.
And you would see if they were,
Usually,
we're supposed to.
we see what they're doing.
Yeah, you see what.
I would have it with permission.
How often do you see a problem with it though? Not,
We haven't,
I mean, they're digging up the same thing we're digging up. I mean,
And they-
they're digging up for gas, we dig up when we have water main repairs and stuff.
So
It's
it's
the same with cattle, and same dirt and same rock.
And there's not been a history of heavy industry here in contaminated soil.
I mean, the only reason we ever let it go to begin with was,
What about caloric? I mean, there's a whole dump site that.
Well,
We had
don't dig out of
there. We had DEP up there, and DEP didn't have a problem. So that's,
they were okay with it.
yeah.
What you had done, or what UPI and all had done?
Well, yeah, where we were dumping, you know, when they come and do their inspections, we take them all the way up through the woods and they look at
They have to
everything.
check everything.
They didn't have a problem with
Yeah, if
it,
it's
that's why.
acceptable for one, it's gonna be acceptable for the other, as long as you have a way of determining that it's clean fill, and you know that it's clean.
Do we turn away like asphalt? Because asphalt's got more chemical, it's just dirt, or is it?
For the most part, it's just dirt.
If you're digging up the street, you got asphalt in there too. Let's be honest.
No, but it's
How
not,
much of it?
it's not that.
4 inches.
Yeah.
4 inches was square.
I will point out though, I've walked that area, hunted that area. It's not an area that's being filled in, it's an area that's just being dumped and keep putting, pushed back. So it's not a fill area, but it's an area that is away from the, I'd say probably 300 yards or a football field at least, away from the closest well that I know of.
Right off her street.
I don't know where the water goes, I'm not gonna answer that question. It's gonna go to Wells Point.
It's all at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't have any water, just, are they considered like special clean water streams or anything up there? Okay.
So when a resident comes in to a public meeting and it's recorded and our employees are being accused of allowing things to be done that aren't anything sinister or anything like that, I want to, at this point, protect any one of us.
I wasn't aware of that.
That we have a policy or procedure or at least a motion on the books. If you want this tabled, that's fine. I just want to go on the record that I'd like an official motion of council on this topic.
I think it's also gonna be contractors doing. I
I
trust
know,
our.
I know, but they,
But do our guys oversee that?
yeah, I was gonna say, they keep an
So it's
eye
not
on
like they
it,
just
though,
go
the
down
guys
stuff.
keep an
No.
eye on it.
There's no legal dumping going on because of the security that our employees provide.
Good about those things, they keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
You need a motion, if you're going to make one, if not, you can make a motion to table with whatever your preference.
As long as our guys are watching, I'm with the motion to allow, because it has to allow.
To allow the acceptance of clean fill
Clean
at the
fill.
watershed property.
Only clean fill.
You amend that to make sure they have some kind of, sort of like you were saying, to make sure it's, or because of the distance, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, it does matter. What is your procedure for making sure that it's clean fill?
Visual inspection,
Yeah, visual inspection. I mean, obviously, if it's taken out of a, you know, a place that we're not sure of, then we can,
Right,
you
okay,
know,
so,
take it.
all right, so, under the supervision of borough employees,
Yeah.
I do it that way.
And or manager.
Right, that's fine.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, as amended and
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? So, as amended, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
That's all I have.
Committee appointments. For environment and conservation. I have signs that I want to put up by the area where we've got, everybody goes in the front, so I have the signs I want, so one contact, that shift to a different department. That's all I have on that. Personnel and Policy Committee.
Trying to make it quick, there's a bunch of stuff here. So, the first thing here is a request for an exception for employees vacation. It was tabled from the last meeting. So how do you want to handle vacation?
Well, I think under the circumstances, we didn't have no backup, Sean left, right? It's not his fault that he didn't take it. And my suggestion would be to make a non-precedent setting motion and pay him out.
Yeah.
This is
Because
a unique circumstance.
It is a very unique circumstance.
Well, another option would be we could extend his.
It's not gonna
it's
matter.
not gonna matter, Kathy. We're gonna,
Why can't we wait until March when it would end, because it's not.
Alex, can I ask you a question? Would you, from now until the end of March, have time to take 112 hours off?
Not thinking, I understand that.
Would you have from now until the end of June to take 112 hours
That's,
off?
can I finish my point, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying that we can make the decision, we have the timetable that allows us in the handbook to wait till March, so I feel like it should be tabled
You're right.
until the time period.
but why do we wanna penalize
He's not gonna
the,
be able to do
why do we
it.
wanna penalize the man?
How is that penalized?
It's like,
Maybe you could use the money.
and you know what, he's the one that
It's
didn't take
over.
the vacation
I agree,
to
he's
keep
an
the
asset,
sewer
I
plant
agree.
going. You
I
would
agree.
understand,
But there's other things in play that we should hold to the handbook.
it would be non-precedent setting
I feel
if this
like
would
we
be
should.
done. You know, you would understand that.
I just think it's ridiculous we're arguing over 112 hours of pay.
Yeah, it's
I
like,
mean, I got new vacation in January that I'm not gonna be able to use.
I understand.
So why would we table something that I can't even use the new vacation I have, let alone the old vacation?
I know, and
Doesn't
I
make
don't
much sense
understand
to
why
me.
the decision has to be made tonight.
because we've been talking about it for a
Because
month.
it's the new year.
Right, it is a new year.
We've already been talking about it for 30
But
days.
we've been talking about negotiations for 18 months or so, right?
How much that's costing you?
Yeah,
It's not costing anything right now.
Yes, it is, it's costing you lawyers.
It's like, hey, we need to pay.
I'll see you guys, have a great night.
Alex.
See,
Now what did you
now
do?
right here,
I didn't
we
do
just.
anything, we're having a discussion.
Julie, I'm not blaming you for doing anything, but this is why we're in the situation we're in. We just pissed off an employee and he left. What does it hurt to do a non-president setting agreement and be the good guy for once?
Yeah, it's not gonna
I
hurt.
feel like rules are rules.
Well,
That's why you make it non-president setting. They understand that. Scott, you understand it would be non-president setting.
But I am not a lawyer, I
Scott.
don't understand that.
I think
Jones.
you can, I mean, you know, again, it is in the handbook, however, you can, council has the ability to make exceptions. Now, I understand with this particular circumstance, it's not going to allow vacation payout, however, it doesn't take into account, there's a very unique set of circumstances here. And I believe the council is allowed to consider the unique circumstances here.
Part of my concern, Joan, is that our employee has earned his vacation. I feel badly that this guy can't take a vacation. And, I I feel like we need some way to allow them to have what he's earned.
But he doesn't,
Now,
he can't take it.
Just to add to what Elaine was saying, we didn't only affect the gentleman, we affected his whole family. His wife didn't take vacation because he couldn't take vacation.
So,
And it's no fault of his own.
what I'm saying is,
I don't see what's so hard about this.
what I'm saying is that I think, you know, the motion been made?
I'll make a motion to pay Alex under non-president setting circumstances.
For 112 hours
For
of
112
vacation.
hours of vacation.
That was not taken.
That was not taken due
2024.
Due to his,
to extenuating circumstances.
What were you gonna say, Joan, after not?
No, what I'm saying is that I believe there were circumstances here that are unique outside of anything that would have been contemplated by the handbook. I think it's been made clear that this is not for purposes, that there's no past practice being established here.
No.
Is that what Mr. Bowles would agree with?
I haven't talked to him about it.
With the, since we're in union negotiations, the
Well,
handbook rules,
here-
go by the handbook, that's
here-
what it's for.
Okay, I mean,
I don't know if I
that's,
should
I
do
mean,
this, but
that's,
I'm
that's what he, that's the advice, he can give an advice because of the negotiations. I'm not going to tell you to go against that advice, I think that there are unique circumstances here, but I'm not gonna tell you to go against that advice. It's up to council to make the decision as a matter of policy.
We're not here to take the time off.
There's a question.
We could have major issues here in town.
I'd like to just add to that, who's to say we won't be in the same problem at the end of this year, because it takes a while.
if we don't get our shit figured out, we will be in the
Because,
same
no,
situation.
doesn't it take a while to have somebody trained to be in that position?
Yes, it does.
So if you don't hire somebody or have somebody in that position to take his place, we could be, so then it's gonna be.
We could be in the same situation.
But then it's gonna be a recurring, it's not gonna be a one-time
Well, that's why
thing.
it's up to us to get the deal done, and then we can move on and do things that we have to do so this doesn't happen. But the longer we wait, and the longer we screw around and don't get a deal done, the further in the hole we go.
My thing is, who is holding up the negotiations? They have had them since October, and we've heard nothing.
Right, that I have confirmed that there was.
You know, so it's in their hands, why are they not coming to us?
Maybe they don't feel the offer we gave them was good enough, and.
But then they should say it.
That's why, and we know what the offer is we gave. Let's sit down, hash out an offer to give to Mr. Boland and Mr. Taylor and get this thing going. I've been asking since September.
So what
I've
did
been
we do?
asking to sit down since September, and everybody says, no, you can't do that because of the way Mr. Taylor is. I wanna get this done. Huh?
Yes, a motion on the table.
There was no second.
What?
There was no second.
Who is the second?
Would you like to hear what?
I'll second.
Take care of your business up there and then I'll say something.
I will second that.
Well, the motion's been seconded, now we can have some discussion, now that the motion's been seconded.
The motion for second is the table.
Okay, no, it was.
No,
No,
Mr.
it was-
Payman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Payman.
Now we can have some additional discussion. All right, there had been a question in the back.
Are you done? Okay. Carol, to answer your question about what's been going on, before Christmas, our union rep got a call from the state mediator, Stacy Hastings. That's who the state mediator is that sat in on the negotiations, saying Mr. Boland contacted her and wanted to have a phone conversation with our rep. That phone call has yet to happen.
I'll find out. I'll find out.
So that's why we're sitting in limbo. We're waiting for a phone call since before Christmas.
Okay.
Okay? Just to answer your question.
Her name is Stacy Hastings.
Her name is Stacy Hastings, the state mediator,
Okay.
that sat in on every negotiating committee.
I will check on that and I will make sure that.
And Mr. Boland, she called our rep saying Mr. Bolin wanted to try to solve this by telephone, which won't work either. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
All right, I will ask him to call Ms. Hastings.
So that's where we're sitting.
So we're, both sides are sitting quietly because the left
Right.
hand doesn't know what the right hand is.
Thank you. That's exactly what's going on.
We gave the proposal,
That was
but
never answered.
it's
Mr. Bowling
behind the
never made
scenes
the call.
that's.
All right, well, I will find
For
out.
whatever
I'll
reason.
find out. I'll find out what happened. Yeah, I'll find out what happened.
But he called to have permission to call Mr. Taylor to talk about it, and Mr. Taylor waiting for the.
That's exactly right.
He's what my answer's saying.
So until we hear from him, we're not gonna give an offer. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Just saying, it
So
sounded too much.
they're not answering our offer until they hear from Mr. Bowling. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That wasn't until December.
Correct. It wasn't.
October.
December, they came up with this.
Okay, this is not gonna be resolved at this table
Correct.
tonight.
It's not.
Okay.
I speak with Mr. Boland daily. I will have him call the state mediator and get this ironed out. And if there is a call that needs to be returned, we'll make sure it's returned and hopefully get the
ball rolling.
ball rolling again, absolutely.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. So the motion has been seconded.
The motion has been seconded to table, I believe, is that?
Hang on.
Okay, then,
But not to set a precedent.
yeah, I mean,
I think we should consult with Mr. Bowles.
I mean, so if that is the case, then your vote would be no, because it's not something that.
I got a motion to table, so should we vote on that?
Yeah, I think it should be voted up or down at this point, and by roll call.
Mr. Arndt,
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Ms. Falcone.
And just to be clear, this is for.
This is to pay him out. Yes, pay him out, pay the vacation out,
112 hours.
112 hours, yeah.
No.
Ms. Haster,
Yes.
Ms. Palmer. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on my list was the employee handbook. I just kind of put that out there, because we're gonna need to make some revisions to that. So,
I got
it's,
one, go ahead.
and really, this is just about when we want to maybe start that process. You know, something I want to discuss tonight about it. I just want to kind of put it on our radar, because at some point, we're gonna have to start, with that. And we're still in the middle of some things with our union.
I was gonna say, you probably want to wait until the negotiations are done to redo the handbook, because you might put some of the things that are negotiated, you know, from negotiations that you go, I like those.
So we're not gonna enact anything, I'm just saying maybe we should schedule a time to start getting started.
To just start looking at it.
Just behind the scenes, tentatively, things we wanna flood, there's some things we kind of already know. This would actually be really for also our administrative employees and aren't part of that negotiation. Just anything that, you know, maybe we wanna get a jump start, because once we get this union contract approved, I don't wanna have to be kind of behind the eight ball where it might take like months and months of us coming. If there's anything we can start, I just want to kind of put it out there so it doesn't get lost, just to stay kind of organized.
Well, you can do changes to the handbook, correct? You can just do changes and do an adoption of.
We're not going to adopt it.
No, but I mean, I was saying, you're not gonna
Yeah.
want changes.
No, just any modifications, we make revisions, so we do revisions. So do we want to set a date right now to we start talking about some of this? Or what are your thoughts? Well, not to make any changes right now, it's just to kind of get the ball rolling.
Is this the actual personnel committee? If you're gonna have a quorum of a committee meeting, that has to be an advertised meeting.
Well, we don't have,
So-
we don't just, we don't just.
Right, I mean,
I just wanted to ask the council as a whole, when we wanted to start.
right, we could meet in less than forum to make
Or
recommendations.
if we want to just put that on hold for now, we can revisit this.
Yeah, I would
No, I
recommend
agree
that
with
we-
you, Elaine.
What do you recommend, Jen?
Well, I would recommend that any changes to the handbook that would impact anyone who is subject to collective bargaining agreement be put on hold
Oh, of course,
until after that time.
Because when the contract is, before it's signed, according to Mr. Foreman, the handbook is included, so we do want that.
Right,
ready to
and
go.
that will be part of the process.
You want it ready, so I agree with you.
So, any other thoughts on it, like, do we want to do something or start? Start making, just rough drafting, we're talking.
Yeah, maybe come up with, maybe all of us brainstorm, look at it and see. I don't know, and then bring our thoughts together.
Okay, well then
I
maybe
mean,
it's
I don't know, how does that,
something we can, just want to kind of put it out
I mean, I
there.
don't know how anybody else feels about it.
Maybe send your thoughts, maybe send your thoughts on
The second meeting in January, maybe most of us have that available, so we could agree to meet that date if you wanted to do.
But do these things have to be discussed in public, Jen?
These are executive session discussions, this is why they should be less than a quorum of council.
Okay.
And then the actual handbook is voted on in the open meeting.
Okay, of course, it's not, we're not voting for even there, I just wanted to get some thoughts done. So we'll find times where we can maybe meet as a small, non-quorum group. The third thing here, yearly reviews, that was another thing I wanted to discuss. We haven't done it, we used to do this in the past on all of our employees. We haven't done those in a while, we did one for our manager in the past, that was about a year and a half, or not quite a year and a quarter ago. So I just wanted to see, I was thinking like around March, we might want to do yearly review. You guys are, just want to see what your thoughts were.
So does this say yearly review of the manager or of all staff?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask, so if we want to just do the manager and,
I think everybody should have a review.
I think too.
All staff.
I think it's important, everybody gets to review.
yeah, so we want,
Okay, so then you're directing me to do it because I believe that's in the ordinance for the borough manager.
That is in the ordinance.
right, so that's what I'm asking, do we want to kind of get that started and then maybe we can talk about them?
Right, you're directing the borough manager to begin annual reviews of all employees. No motions needed for that, I mean, it's part of the manager ordinance.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, do you want to do it as early as March? What about hires that come in February?
Well, they wouldn't get an annual review,
Yeah.
these are for our existing long term.
Maybe do one in October if there's somebody who's been here from like February or March.
Of course, of course, yeah, we've got the time. Okay. So then, yes, we are going to direct Stacy to.
Yes.
do that.
Begin doing that.
Begin in March.
How does that work with you? You've got a lot going on right now.
What about the employee's anniversary date? As far as, from that point on, a yearly review on their anniversary? That way you're not swamped with
Yes,
all
it's
at one
good.
time.
We don't have everybody to do it one time, does that work for you, does that help for
That's
you?
up to council.
What's typically what has been done in the past?
It has not.
Okay.
Well, in the past, I saw some of our longer term employees, I saw some reviews in the file. And there was a document that basically just went over different things, just constructive feedback and areas maybe to improve or areas where you're doing well. I think we can find a document to use.
that's out there.
I just said something about files, I was looking for Sherry's exit interview in her personnel folder, and I can't find it. They go in the personnel folder,
Yeah, I
and
have
it's not there.
Yes, I've never put one in any of them, even with the other.
Oh, they should be in, as far as I know, TNL says, DL&I says that they're supposed to be in the personnel.
Who?
Department of Labor and
Oh,
Industry.
right.
Yeah,
Those
they
should
go
be
in the personnel
Those should be in the personnel file, but anything that is confidential, such as protected health information, is separate.
Even after employment.
Even after.
Yeah,
Yeah,
never
it's-
changed.
I can do that, I have all.
Yeah, I was just looking because I wanted to see, and it was like,
No, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't have it in a format, but I can type it out.
oh, it doesn't matter.
So, okay, so then we'll do that, and you can maybe give us a list of maybe dates of when people are up for their review, we'll have to come up with a document that's acceptable to use for the review. Employee safety, that's the next thing on the list here. Couple things, bad weather, do we wanna have a policy that states, I think right now we just go by what the school. No, we don't.
Previous administrations have worked with the manager, and it was haphazard, so depending on circumstances and depending on the people in those positions, like the president of council and the borough manager making the decision whether to delay the opening of the office, closing the office early, closing it completely, giving a paid day off, paid time, whatever the circumstances were.
So what have we been doing since you've been here? Is that what you've been doing?
We've been communicating with the president of borough council to find out what the decision is gonna be. It was not left to me.
Okay. Do we wanna put together a policy on it, or do we wanna, I don't want anyone to be in danger trying to get here on bad roads, and I don't know if you would actually know how bad the roads are.
And I have to give the staff who come into the office advance enough notice, so they're not leaving during the worst part before they're, plowed out at home to get here. Or,
Common sense and, what the roads look like, you don't want to put yourself in danger, you should.
Then can we come up with something like maybe a 2-hour delay?
A delay or,
Like the school
like,
does.
go like the
Tie
school,
it to a school.
Like, if she-
although the school is one to close at the drop of a hat.
Because they do
But-
virtual.
Well, that's true, they can do it virtually.
Yeah, they do virtual. But I mean, like a 2-hour delay, but you're gonna have to let them know ahead of time. Even doing a 2-hour delay for a 10 o'clock opening.
Depends what time the sun starts too.
Yeah, but well, you know what, they'll put you a 2-hour delay, even if if the weather hasn't, precipitation hasn't started falling.
If you're already here and it starts getting bad and you got bad, if you rush to get home, you just.
By all means, you
Well,
think you're
maybe we need
safe.
to look at like both coming and going. Maybe we should kind of get some
Yeah, it's about their
ideas together.
safety.
I just wanted to bring it up, so that's the one part. The other thing with employee safety is, our handbook mentions a safety committee. And we don't have a safety committee, we haven't been able to find that we had one.
I think they recommended it many years ago and they came up with something basic.
And sometimes the workers' comp insurer requires it, but if that's not the case, you're not required to have it.
So, Joe, you were in on the last employee handbook formulation. So back in 2011, the current employee handbook was formulated and there was a committee, and the committee came back, and the committee was made up of employees. Came back to council and asked, well, where's the safety committee? And then in the notes, it said that council has a responsibility to assign a committee, to create that safety committee. And then that was never done.
Well,
Whose notes? Not understanding the document you're reading.
So in 2011, one of the, or two of the council members were given the task of working with Joan and other members of staff to formulate an employee handbook.
Right, and we worked on that handbook, and that handbook was adopted in 2012 or 2013. And there was a safety committee that was a part, that was listed in that handbook. And I believe that the workers' compensation insurers, some workers' compensation insurers require a safety committee.
But ours does not.
Okay, so, but it was listed in there.
so the question I would have is, should we remove it from our handbook? But I also wanted to state that the job descriptions also state that the department leads are to establish what they think is safe protocol for.
And maybe the department, maybe the
And the
department
manager as
leads
well.
and manager should be the safety committee.
And what I'm wondering is if maybe we could annually put together a list and then annually just update it as needed. On things we expect. The job descriptions pretty much say for the men that are in dangerous settings, there's safety that they have to be trained in. But honestly, there could be safety things even for our office staff on, things not to do with,
Right, I know of other municipalities that have a safety committee, and there's a monthly meeting on practices. And it is a good idea, and I would recommend it, and it's also possible, I don't know what the workers' compensation insurance policy is currently, or other insurance is currently. So I think that the establishment of a safety committee and regular meetings is a good idea.
And the challenge is it's not really confined by motion, but we're also gotta be careful about adopting any standards that are less.
I'm just wondering if there be something that's stated in the job descriptions for everybody that they adhere to.
Well, the handbook
Have a list
itself,
of this.
the handbook itself contains requirements that employees follow all required protocols, wear all required safety gear for the position and for the activity, follow safety protocols and operating equipment. So that doesn't need to be in each job description, it's already there in the handbook. I remember,
Yeah, it says
I remember-
department head, leader responsible for implementing the safety program of the Borough of Topton. So that's kind of what.
right, that's already there. The question is whether to establish a separate safety committee for purposes of safety things, discussion of things like recalls that might have come in.
Okay, so that's more for.
They typically look at other incidents that you've had and address
Right, what could have been done better?
what could have been done better.
So
What are
that's,
near misses that have occurred and you need to
There was a question.
those things.
just for our employees to be safe, operating safely. So then should we direct the manager to get together with the heads of the department and
I would say put that in the handbook revision. Have that in the next revision of the handbook. It's not something to do at this time.
Okay, because you're taking some of the.
You had a comment?
Yes, I think you need to address the snow issue, because in the outside world, you either take non-pay or you take vacation or whatever, you don't just get a free leave on that.
yeah, we'll have to talk about.
I think the snow issue needs to be addressed. I'm sure I asked here, DECA doesn't get compensated, you go to work, they're there the whole time. Doesn't matter whether it's 6 feet or 2 inches. You gotta deal with it, that's part of, if you can't make it in, then you take sick leave or annual leave. Whatever, you can't just say it's a free day, because you're required to be there.
Well, we're not saying that.
Yeah, well, I
I'm
think,
just saying that I want our people to be safe. I don't.
I agree 100%, but there has to be.
You're sliding off the road, getting.
I agree 100%, but there has to be something in place if they can't make it or don't want to come in.
Right, we'll have to we'll discuss that. Okay, let me see here.
so the next item would be that Kathy brought this up, that we currently do not have a credit card policy. And she had suggested that maybe we put something together, and we already have a rough draft of one.
Yeah, I already made the policy, I wrote the policy, and Joan,
I realized it, yeah.
she revised it.
Yeah, now I believe that we have something in the handbook already about credit card usage.
I'm surprised, because it's been how many years we've been using. So there's no concern with our manager having a
No.
credit card, but I think
There's no misuse at all.
I think it's a good idea to have a policy, it doesn't hurt. But I do want to mention this, is that, I was looking through my records, and we actually had 2 instances, in the time I've been on council, where this has come up before. So 2 years ago, I think it was January of 2023, there was a discussion about credit card and the council as a whole made a decision on like a credit limit. And you might remember, Stacy, there was a time when I think Scott was at some type of not a trade show, but there was, I can't remember, he was at some type of.
They get a special deal on
And he could get a special pricing on something, do you remember that? We talked about a credit card, limiting him. So it was the council at every one of these times that as a whole made decisions on the limit of money to be spent. So, rather than one person, I think our manager knows best what amount of money we can, we allow our employees to use.
What I recall was that there was a threshold amount over which council would have to be consulted.
Right.
Yes.
So I think I put in like $500 for, and the only reason I did like that amount was, and that was for like each purchase. Because if there's an emergency, what if they're here on a Saturday and have to run and get a pump? Let's just say like a pump, some kind.
Right, that's something to discuss.
You know what I
She
mean.
She knows best how much money she would need to have. What uses do you use the card for? Is there anything, is it just when you're going out to get particular?
Right, and and the office isn't open and
Right, so
those people who work weekends.
What do you feel?
So I think we're talking about 2 different things from my interpretation, a purchasing policy and a credit card use
I'm
policy.
talking about the credit card use policy.
That's, when I approach council, it's about purchases.
Right. And there's credit card use, which is what are appropriate purchases and, proper use of the credit card, proper storage of the credit card, who are authorized users, that's the credit
The
card use
authorized
policy.
users and the amounts have been voted on in the past, but
They were for individual things, so do we wanna set something, what do you feel would be, a level of use that would be needed in the office, like that you would need to use it for something? Do you think 500 is enough, or should your threshold be higher?
I mean, that's,
I mean, I'm just asking you, like, when you use the credit card for need, you would know what needs that you have in the course of doing your job, you know what I mean?
most of my purchases aren't
Are not that,
on, because I can do an order.
like an emergency basis, is there anything that you think?
I'd have to research that, really.
Okay, well, maybe you could find out what would be a suitable amount. And, also, I was looking through this original thing here, documentation. Is it reasonable to think that within 3 days of the purchase that receipts would be provided to?
Yes, because if it's over a weekend, then if it's Saturday, then Monday we would have a receipt.
All right, so then, why don't you get back to, I guess, me and let me know what you think would be a reasonable amount of money. And we can look at this needed, to reduce. I guess we'll look at that later. Is there anything on your agenda you want to mention as far as, you have previewed this before we have
The credit card use policy, no, I had given my comments and my revisions.
Okay.
and to you and to Kathy.
All right, so the next item would be to authorize council members as the borough employees to operate vehicles and equipment to assist during emergencies on an as-needed basis.
Right, and that would be only employees qualified to operate that equipment. If it's equipment that requires a CDL, that would be those with a CDL and appropriate class. So just realize it would not be borough, members of borough council operating trucks who aren't qualified to do so.
And this would be, of course, only in the event of an emergency, as part of our emergency plan. Is there anything you guys want to discuss about that?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead with it.
Okay, and at what rate of pay?
Well, if they have a CDL, they would get more than if they didn't have a CDL.
CDL, do any members of council have a CDL? Okay, all right, so that wouldn't be, an issue.
Well, operating vehicles may also be
It does have a plate, so it is,
So it's street legal?
yes. As is the
that's not a
backhoe.
I'm just saying that's not a
Right, so there's,
it's just
Right, we only have one piece of equipment that requires a CDL.
okay.
So we probably consider not.
And we did, I know Dan did an range of pay. Do you want to talk about
I think,
that?
Joan's original suggestion was to be above minimum wage, but below current rates of current employees.
So what would that be?
minimum wage is $7.25 an hour.
To the maximum of. What's the maximum? No, we're gonna pay maximum amount.
I mean, I do have someone in the audience with their hand up.
I did
And
not.
we're still discussing.
Question, if Borough Council is gonna be using the borough's vehicles and they hit something,
That will be insured, that Stacy has looked into that, I believe.
okay, and for those on council who have jobs and they get hurt bad enough that they have to claim workman's comp, is that covered by the borough?
I've researched all this, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, why don't you look up what you've researched on the workers' comp, I mean, that could vary by insurer, but no one would be operating a vehicle unless we have assurances from our insurance agents that they're covered.
It costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my original statement where we're saying that there's no money in this borough, but yet we're willing to pay money to things that aren't necessarily needed if things would get together with the borough council and things would be set straight.
An emergency, we're not replacing.
We're not at that.
I'm not saying that you're replacing them, what I'm saying
No, we're
is,
not at that step yet, that's the next item on the agenda. This one is just
but it
council
shouldn't
member.
be needed. If it hasn't been needed in years and there hasn't been an issue in years, why all of a sudden is this becoming a problem?
Because it's the first time for everything and you need to be
Yeah.
prepared, and this motion is necessary to make sure that there is insurance coverage. That's the official action that is needed.
This is more about insurance if me or a guy has to jump in the truck,
And you know what?
which I don't think we ever will, but
This probably
just in
happened
case.
before you were born, but I remember back in we had the blizzard, and the roads were blown.
I'm an eighties baby, so I know. I remember the 96 blizzard.
Actually looking for people that would be able to do that whole work, and, volunteers, they needed help to, because they were dumped in snow. They had literally dumped the snow.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize, members of council who are qualified, to operate vehicles. And the pay range that was set was $7.25 to $10.
$10 per hour.
Per hour.
McDonald's is starting at 15 or 17.
We're good, okay.
And I'm on an as-needed basis.
On an as-needed basis, and we need that emergency.
I don't wanna muddle the process, but it's not going to pay.
No one has to take pay.
Okay, because if you have to take pay, I'd be out.
No one, it's just setting a rate. And it has to be accepted.
Okay, then you need a second to that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Anyone opposed?
All right. The next one would be authorizing hiring snow emergency help. Discuss rates for time and equipment and other details. So if we need to hire people as temporary workers as emergency, how do we want to do that? You can hire people who are qualified that don't have equipment to use, or we can hire people who do have their own equipment, or both. Just for discussion.
I think if you're talking about just hiring people off the street that say they can do it and don't have equipment, I wouldn't advise putting them in our equipment.
I'm saying if we hire someone, do we want to hire them if they're qualified? If someone's a CDL, they want to work for us.
When I worked for the snow removal company, if you weren't on the list a year ahead of time, you're gonna be at the end of the list when you call. If we call now, looking for people who.
I'm not, you're correct, I agree with you, that's probably it. We just want to say in the event that we have a snow emergency, that we're authorizing to hire people, I'm not saying that because maybe it won't happen. But we have to have a discussion here about this so we're prepared in the event of an emergency. So what rate would we set is it for just their time? Is it a rate for time and equipment if they're bringing their own equipment? So
They have to bring their own equipment.
Yeah, they have to be a licensed contractor.
So we have to use a licensed contractor. We would pay that to come with his own equipment and help us out. What rate of pay do we want to set?
I don't think we said.
You can't say, and in those conditions, you would not be able to set the rate.
Well, I'm just saying, do you want to approve a range of what if someone.
I don't think you can, I don't think you can do that. I think this is just, it would be an authorizing in the event of a declared emergency, when, borough, equipment is not sufficient, borough employees and equipment are not sufficient to authorize the hiring of snow emergency help, don't set rates.
Okay, so.
Well, we've done that, council's already approved that emergency agreement.
Okay, then it doesn't need to be done, if it's already done, it doesn't need to be. Has there already been an agreement, has there already been?
Council has reviewed it, agreed to it, left the rate and equipment amount
So that
open.
is already authorized by council, is what you're saying.
So we don't need to do that?
We don't need to do that tonight, that sounds like it was probably carried over.
Okay, then do we want to allow to hire people as temporary employees at a rate in case we need them to shovel open pads or just in the event that there's a need for somebody?
Specifically, you're talking shoveling.
Well, I'm saying if we need to hire an emergency, people on an emergency basis, as temp employees.
I mean, most likely the emergency would be to keep the streets open, not
Right.
shoveling sidewalks.
Yeah, people can stay at home.
Yeah, it's a bad, we're gonna say that.
Well, there was a discussion about some of the areas that were required to be done.
That's right.
I'm just saying, do we want to hire people who do not have their own equipment?
Once the agreement's in place, I don't think we can.
Well,
I don't think, once the
there's
collective
no
bargaining
agreement,
agreement is
yes,
in
I'm
place.
not talking about when there's an agreement, saying if we have an emergency, up until the time. we have-
If there is that level of an emergency, you can make emergency purchases without, this type of bidding, or without bidding, and you can ratify it at a later time. I mean, council can informally discuss it. It can be handled on that basis. It does not have to be pre-authorized. Declared emergency, gives you greater powers.
Okay, so does it, we don't really need to, we can hire someone if we need to.
If the need presented itself in a life and death type of emergency, you could, and then you ratify it at a later time. It's very unlikely that you would get to the point of where you would have to hire snow emergency temporary help beyond a contractor with a couple of extra plows.
Elaine, I have a question. Yes?
I'm just curious, I've hired contractors for years doing snow removal, et cetera. What numbers were given to the borough for operating a plow, a backhoe, et cetera, for an emergency basis? Because I know what we paid, what we were quoted, and it's outrageous.
What were you quoted?
In some cases, $180 an hour for a pickup truck,
It's up there.
or more. Backhoe's well over $200 an hour. So I was just curious what you were quoted, since we're talking about it.
It is up there, wow, you know it.
Yeah. Is there any other discussion we wanna have on hiring and
I don't understand authorized hiring of snow emergency help as opposed to authorized. Didn't we already do this?
This is, yeah, I believe that we've already, based on what Stacy told me, this is in prior meeting, that this was already authorized. And again, there are emergency powers in this for emergency.
Okay, all right.
And that concludes my report.
Streets committee?
I've never worked on it. I'm sorry, there's one other thing I wanted to just mention, this was to Stacy. So, Stacy, this is with regard to personnel. Do you have any update on how it's going with the applicants for the part-time administrative position?
So we have approximately 18 applicants currently, and now we need to review them as we did not get a due date when we advertised, so we can interview as we receive.
Okay, so are we gonna, when do you want to start interviewing?
When we have time, because the auditors are coming in now, end of January, beginning of February, and workers' compensation audit happens, et cetera, so.
No way we can get somebody who's gonna help you sort through some of the problems that you're gonna be on it.
So I guess over here just does.
No,
Do you want to
you have to wait to see what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They just come in and look
They
at
come in
it
and
and
they
say,
just go out.
then they
go, we want this.
then they get reports from our financial system as they need them.
Okay, so you don't want to track person, it's just all, okay.
It's,
Okay, so you have
we're
an
gonna,
idea?
as soon as we can find the time, but we're both behind, Trenda and myself.
I understand, I
Yeah.
understand. You think in February is more likely, or January?
We're gonna be setting things up by the beginning of February, so.
What do you need in January schedule as far as things that close the public, and to help you to do what you need to do, end of the year?
We already did year end, So beginning of the year is reporting and working with auditors.
Yeah, do you need any time for that, just to put it out there and it's gonna be closed to the public? Think it would help?
Well, water sewer bills go out at the end of this month, so that's kind of unfair to the public if
Okay.
we close too much to the public.
No, I'm just
Is
asking.
it?
That's
Yeah,
what I'm asking.
but we appreciate it, I mean, anytime you'd like us to close to the
Well,
public.
no, I'm just saying what you need, I just wanted to ask if you needed.
If you need, if you can come up, like, you go, okay, water sewer bills
That
are
concludes
done,
my
maybe just shoot me an email.
Okay, so next is finance committee.
I'd like to look to a motion to approve the list of bills and transfers as presented to council.
I have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approved?
I'd also like to make the motion again this year to approve the pay the necessary bills as needed prior to council meetings. A lot of times it makes a difference between having to pay finance charges, penalties, interest, all those things on the bills.
Do you know which ones they are?
We had done that in the past, where the.
Right, there should be a blanket, motion throughout the year for that.
Yes,
That's what it is.
that's what I wanted.
That's okay, so this is for the entire, it's just, this is a policy that just should stay in place,
I
but
just was curious. I thought that was a.
Yeah, us too.
Don't we have to do it this year?
just, I would say just at this point, it's on the floor, just do it, but I don't think you have to agree.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for that.
The ones, only the ones that would give us a penalty. Late fee.
It would be for all, to pay all of them as needed prior to the meeting. I'm just using those for example.
Right, so, right, but it's to avoid having to pay a penalty.
No, she's saying all, she's saying not the ones just.
No, it should be just the ones that come due.
Attendance, votes,
Yeah, it comes due between
Most of the
meetings.
bills come in that I see are like net 10.
Right, and those should be paid, so yes.
Yeah.
Right, so it is an authorization you should have, and then they're ratified at the next meeting.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. Call for the vote.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes.
I'd also like to make a motion to authorize the opening of a new escrow account for the fire at the home here in town.
Right, it's the,
Yeah, on Great Avenue.
it's the insurance, right, it's the
Yes.
escrow part of the fire insurance proceeds to ensure the building is secured and rebuilt.
Yes.
Owner doesn't run off with the insurance proceeds and we burn up shell.
Yeah, so we have to all open a special account for that, so I'd like to make a motion to do that.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
It's in the.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So when's my committee?
Community Relations Committee.
I have a letter here from the Brandywine Heights Area School District. They are having a 5th annual education showcase and mindfulness for family event that's going to be held on April 3rd. Does not give a time. This is for supporting families, mental health, mindfulness strategies. Last year, they had 40 businesses that provided raffle items, they gave gift cards, and you can contact the Brandywine Heights School District if you want any more information. It would be on their website. Also for the 150th anniversary, we will have a meeting of the minds to see what, and brainstorming what it is you would like to see take place during the 150th anniversary. Do we wanna advertise a meeting? A motion?
Well, has the committee been created?
No.
Okay, so
Create a
the
committee.
motion to create an ad hoc committee for the 150th anniversary commemoration.
I'll make that motion. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Granted.
So, do I have any volunteers to be on this committee? Scott?
Not right now.
Not right now?
See Mary Ellen and Julie?
Just put Mary on.
And Colleen had,
Yeah.
also
said like
volunteered
three
last
times
time.
now. So,
What,
Say, say word, do I need to spell it?
I don't want to speak for Carol, but maybe Kurt would be in, he's not. But Kurt Showalter might be interested.
Put a question mark there.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
gets he's very involved with the community.
Maybe he needs. Could you put something on the bulletin board out there?
yeah, maybe we can advertise it and post it on social media.
And then give me a,
Do we wanna do a date?
kind of like a time frame. Yeah, if you wanna set up a date and then all responses of interested parties could go to somebody's email
Okay,
or mine.
I was looking at the end of January 30th. No, I set up a meeting,
Because
our
it is
first
such a
meeting.
short time frame we have to work with, it might be nice to start it
Yeah, just start, see where we're gonna be going with this. Also, as I had mentioned earlier, we had, a notice from Long Swamp Township about the 250th anniversary of the nation. If we were going to get involved with that, they are going to be starting meetings, so I left them, a message that they could contact us, just let us know what they're doing. That's about it.
Could you state the date and time again?
Pardon?
Date and time that you're setting the meeting?
January 30th, 7 o'clock. And that'll be here.
Do you wanna get everybody's email address, just to kind of?
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay.
Community Relations Committee. Is that what you're,
Oh, that was
property report, property committee next, properties.
Okay, I did receive information from Jacob on the logging. He sent out 89 notices to potential buyers in the area. He did have a tour scheduled, but there was no interest by any of the loggers to do a tour. But since that, he has been contacted by two that want to look at the site on their own. And this week he will be calling and emailing everybody reminders because the due date is Friday. But he did also say, he didn't realize, but this could be a bad time because of what's gonna happen next Monday. Some loggers might be hesitant because of the potential tariffs. And China is one of our big logging buyers, so.
No, it's when they sell to us that the tariff is applied,
I'm
not.
just telling you what he, don't trouble messenger.
When we sell to them,
I'm just telling you what he told me.
they don't understand.
Yeah, but what happens is sometimes they reciprocate, say in Canada with
Yes.
wood and lumber, that's a concern.
He's not saying it is, but it's out there. The pool is on hold. I don't know if Charlie has anything anything on the master plan
I know they were finishing up with the last one.
and Oak Alley?
Oak Alley, we received the contract documents back, we got everything but the schedule yesterday, so we're doing follow-up. The contract's signed by them, we'll be getting it over, so we're finishing up.
That's all I have.
Dan's report. Second in your room packet. Second in your room packet. And utility committee report is that in every,
I don't know.
yes, report packet.
Receivables agent,
So it's included in your room packet.
Okay.
Okay. So for the record, you want to go through these?
Total invoice, $6,856.67. Total paid, $10,908.07. Receivable negative, $4,051.40. And we have over 90 days, $1,016.91. And we have a lot of people unapplied credit, $9,216.25.
and just so people know, the invoices are going out at the end of January, so payment plans are available from now until the 17th, which is this Friday. Just see us for more information on that. Meter reads are being done as we speak.
Engineers report.
We have a couple of things to hit, end of the year reporting for 2024, we have two due. So we're working with Alex to get all that together. DRBC is due at the end of this month, and Chapter 94 is due in March. So both of those we compiled the data from last year, that's true. We got everything.
Chapter 94.
Yeah, it's 94, I missed the 9. Tells you, well, the water supply well, still pounding through with the monitoring well data. I hope that's resolved in short order. Did deliver to Stacy the MS4 binder. That's a new part of the permit requirements that you have the information found together. So we do that as part of the report. Barclay, we did apply for the LSA grant. Have been responding to some questions from them, so we're in the process, but it'll still get us volunteer before that. We do not at this point know of any other water or wastewater grant programs that are definitely effective. I haven't put those out yet, so when they do, we'll get with Stacy about that. I did talk to our grants folks, Michelle, and I will schedule a meeting with Peter for the year on what grants are available. Washington Street, we did get in December awarded the equipment purchase. We expect that by March. The paperwork to verify that and get that finalized. Once we have that, we will bid the actual construction one. So we will include the packet of approved materials in that contract. I expect then that the construction will start this summer. That's funding being available. So that's what we're kind of looking at. Hit Oak Alley, so. You got it out of the office, I had to do what Alex didn't do. I had to use it or lose it vacation, so I had to take that while I was sick over the holiday. I was out for a bit.
I did contact this gentleman, PSAB would like to honor our borough's hometown heroes at their 2025 conference.
Nice.
So this is for all of Pennsylvania, so I contacted him to see exactly what he wants. There's a lot of fine print, and if we can do it, I'll contact the families to make sure we have permission. But I think it would be good to have some of our veterans recognized.
And the order is in process because we got the invoice.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, Topton Community Ethical Club.
Everything is going status quo. They were able to purchase, with the help of a grant, a litter and load system for the one ambulance. That in short is automatic lift for a litter, so they don't have to manually do that. Yeah, it's really cool. Man, I had to do that by hand. And they're hoping to get another one, so.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. And the Topton Borough Preservation Board, I have a meeting this month. Excuse me. As balance, we have, in the checking account, $4,297.85. And then the Brandywine Community Library.
Just sort of quickly, thank you for your support last year. And our board meeting is until the end of the month, so I should be able to provide you with whatever our annual recorded statement is. We're currently in fundraising for $2,500 in matching funds for the teen program. So just know that we're working on that. I think we get 20% so far. If you like steaks, Texas Roadhouse is doing a fundraiser for us on January the 29th. The Texas Roadhouse out toward Allentown. And I promised you the date, February 4th, 7 p.m. is when the county commissioners will be meeting at the library.
Joe, time for that.
7 p.m. February 4th.
When's Texas Roadhouse?
The 29th. The day before the committee meeting. If it weren't so noisy at Roadhouses, we could have a meeting there.
So, and Stacy, can you put something on our site about the Texas Roadhouse thing as the fundraiser program? Is that something you can do?
You can probably share it
through
on
Facebook.
Yeah, share it
If
on
you can share it and
Facebook.
get the word out, that would be good.
And I'll have Heather send a note about the commissioners meeting for the sign.
Thank you.
I have one question, just real quick. Before we adjourn.
Okay.
Stacy, I wanted to know, do you have a list of what minutes need to be completed?
August, September, October, November, the books in October, November, and 2 in December. And the CAs.
August, September.
October, November, and 2 in December, and then the CA.
Is there anything we can do with the 17th? Is there any way we can get somebody to help you do that, or is there anything?
Colleen has been helping, taking notes.
I'll go back. Yeah, I take notes when I'm here. I can go back and look at
What do you need besides notes?
Time.
Typist?
You have to sit and listen to the.
Yeah, I'm just saying, what do you need in case we can find somebody for you, a volunteer? Is there anything you can give me as far as?
The YouTube videos, the notes, and time, really.
I mean, I typed them up.
Oh, you typed them up?
Yeah, I typed them up.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I just didn't know that it was still needed, so I asked Stacy to tell me if she needed it. So I'll go back and look at my folder and.
That would be great.
committee is, and then but what I type up has to be put in whatever the right format is, and I really have trouble hearing when you are doing moving and seconding. So I have asked before for the president to say, so-and-so moved, so-and-so seconded, so that it's on the video that is
So it's in the
recorded.
notes.
So she has it written down, and I sometimes get it and sometimes don't, but it would be a lot easier.
Thank you for your help.
Yes,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second.
Third.
No, there he is.